All right, what's going on, people? Find somebody who knows somebody to tell somebody about what we've got going on over here. If you like it, let us know. Share it if you do, and subscribe if this is what you're looking for. So check it out. Got a treat. So Dwight has got some time here to be with us. I appreciate you coming back here, bro. As
Yes,
always, for also providing some fact and also a little bit of comedy relief if we need it here. So as everybody knows, this is the show to whereas if we get anybody who's on with us right now, that's great, all fine and good. If not, we know the replay gang will get this. But ideally here, what I want to re-emphasize to folks here is that this particular platform that you see in front of you is about education first. Now, yes, entertainment has to come from a particular perspective of what you're adding here. But before we look at entertainment, we need to talk education first, because there's an issue that we have right now in the community, whether if we're not focusing on just Black, but around the globe here, where information is being proliferated that is not being vetted before people take it for action. Before I say anything else, Dwight, go ahead and open it out, man. Anything you want to add to it that I've forgotten, or just something that's on your mind? Mike is yours.
No, I just want to say I appreciate you sharing your platform with me. Hopefully, at the end of this conversation, some people will look at things a little differently, because right now, information is running amok. You know, everybody's getting information from up the block, around the corner. Hotep Jones is very important these days. You know, that's the guy on the corner with all the information. Ain't never read a paper. I can't tell you when the last time you read a book, but he's the most knowledgeable guy on the block. We cannot get our information from Hotep Jones. We can't.
And folks, so Hotep Jones is what Dwight and I thought about. Okay, who is this dude out here who's got a microphone, he's got internet connection, and he's out here just throwing stuff out here just because of the fact it's anecdotal evidence or his experience that he's seen. Now, let's say if Hotep Jones himself has not actually pursued to get anything outside of the information he knows, he's going to tell you what he knows. He's going to tell you what he's going to tell you. It doesn't mean that it's true, may not mean that it's false, but he's going to give you his anecdotal perspective. And that's what we need to try and get away from. We need to make sure that if anything is said on the mic, it's something that can be corroborated. And also we have to look at collaborating with others to ensure that we keep the information accurate. Otherwise, we're just going to have folks up here riffing, just pardon the language, but shitting on the mic.
Absolutely. I want to add something to that too, and
All means.
from this perspective, we have to kind of stop looking at people who dispense information as corny or whatever word we want to use, educated. You know, in some communities, the smart guy is called all kinds of different euphemisms. Smart guy, nerd, you know, everything that kind of denigrate the fact that he has information.
Square,
We have to get away from that, and we have to kind of respect the people that are reading their papers, they're reading their books, they're well read on subjects, topics. I mean, we just have to get more more respectful of people who have information and are willing to share it. We got to get out of this nonsense of looking down on people who have information, who are intelligent and can communicate. We have to get out of that. It's killing us. You know, when you see somebody that's saying something stupid, you got to say, "Hey, bro, come on, man, come on, man, Hotep, stop it." So we got to get out of that.
All right. So moving with that, folks, the title of today's show, Lies Black Conservatives Tell Other Black Folks. And we know this is happening. We know damn straight that when we sit down and have a conversation with someone, then all of a sudden, well, you know, Kamala Harris isn't Black. We're talking straight foolery at this point. We know we're talking a level of ignorance that doesn't require any conversation, but you get drawn into it because, once again, Hotep is so down for the cause, you can't tell him anything. Bro, I know it. I know it. I saw it. I know it. Because of what, Hotep? Because Candaceowens told me. I saw Candace present. Like, bro. So there are 3 Black conservatives that I see are the same ones who are proliferating misinformation inside of our midst. But the issue that people stop or don't stop to think about here is that there's not a large pocket of, we'll say, progressive, liberal, democratic type of Blacks that are out here. Majority that you run into on social media happen to be Black and conservative, which means that anything said by them is taken as, what does the Christians like to say, the gospel truth, something like that. Yeah. They take it as truth, and that's where it ends. So again, my whole purpose of being here, and I'm glad Dwight could join us today, is to make sure that there's another voice that you can listen to that's actually going to take the time to look at what's being said and ensure that we have proof to put in. All right. The proof is always going to be in the output. So what we're here to address today, we're going to say is lies. And because of that, I'm going to open the show with En Vogue's lies. So again, find somebody who knows somebody, tell somebody who knows what's going on out here. Like let me know, share it if you do. Subscribe.
Get you in the mood.
Some mood music. Let's go ahead. Girls, if you will, please. So excuse me as I fade to the back for a second. Go ahead. Boy, and it's still good. Fair use. Fair use.
Good music, right there.
Hands up. All right. So let's go ahead and fade this into the background.
I like that.
Well, I'll go ahead and share it with you at the end here. I think I want to make sure I build a good collection here. Now, if you also know, when some of my other council member partners join, we do when music had a message. And basically, we'll take music from different sections of time periods, we'll play it, and then we'll stop and think, what was the environment at that point in time? So when you listen to this again, think about it. When did this cut come out?
This is the mid-90s, right? Reagan.
Using lies as an alibi. So I want to say it was probably around mid-90s, the 90s, maybe 94, 95, when Vogue had their second CD that came out. And this is one of the cuts that was on it. And I want to say that was when I think we had the Khobar Towers. It was 95 with the Khobar Towers bombing in Saudi Arabia, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, right around that time, yeah.
So this is where people were trying to figure out, hey, are you telling the truth about this? Are we doing things in the military based upon fact? Are we getting lied to? So I remember this was En Vogue's response to the environment at the time.
Yeah, it's a message behind that for sure.
Yeah, damn sure was a message. So let me go ahead.
Man.
Let me calm that out so we don't have sounds talking over each other. All right, so let's go ahead and open this up here. So once again, folks, title of the show, Lies Black Conservatives Tell Other Blacks. So ideally, sitting in that key position, we have, first and foremost, Candaceowens. Now, this is an interview that she did with the Breakfast Club about almost a year ago. And the person who brought this out here, at least to my attention, is a brother named Michael Imhotep. And if you're not familiar with him, I think you may be, Dwight. Have you ever seen him on Roland Martin? He's one of the folks who comes up and
I probably have.
So he's got a network that's called the African American network.
Okay.
And he does a lot of history there where he goes into subjects that we as Blacks literally don't discuss or was never taught to us in school. So as a result of that, he's got information that, again, if you let the average Black person, and again, we're just focusing right now just on Blacks, the average Black person who has never heard anything that he's talking about either in obscure conversation or in school, the first thing they tell you, oh, that's a lie. Oh, you lying. That can't be right. Argue with you, hearing it for the first time, but has no rebuttal other than you lying because they've never heard of it. But enough for me. So again, this is Candace trying to come back to the Black side of the street, as guys were joking about, after she got the boot from the Daily Wire from her partner, Ben Shapiro. Fair use, fair use. Let me know if you can hear this. Again, this is Michael Imhotep.
Yeah, I'm familiar with him.
And this man is being hailed as a hero because he had to sign the Civil Rights Act, essentially with a figurative gun to his head because the country was on fire. You know, JFK had just died, and there were riots in the streets protesting because of racism, and he did not want to sign it, but he did. And with the other hand, he signed the Great Society Act and incentivized welfareism and, you know, programs to incentivize not marrying Black men. You know, to think that we had government agents knocking on the door, going into the homes of Black women and being like, there better not be a man that lives here. We're just here to check to make sure. If you want this check, dad can't be home. Every other ill that Black America is facing today is because we've removed fathers from the home. So I'm like a big, you know, I use my platform to talk about men a lot and the need for male leadership, everything that is so harmful, this, you know, Me Too, false feminism, all of this crap. It's anti-man, and it's anti-man for a reason, because a society cannot survive without strong men. A household cannot survive without strong men. We need strong men to lead homes. And so the fracturing of the Black family, I think, was the test. Like, you know, like we were the mice in the experiment. Like, let's see how that goes. And now they're kind of doing that writ large. And I hate feminism so much. I can't even tell you, because what it's about is it's just an attack on men.
Well, you just said a lot, Candace. Let's talk about some of these things. Now, you said a lot. Now with the
all right, so you hear the level of corniness that we're dealing with, right?
Well, she's a grifter. For people that don't know what a grifter is, that means she's working and she's trying to get money off of what she's saying. You know, and that was a basic bow down and red carpet rollout to the people that she's basically been talking about while she was on the other side. So she wants to go ahead and get back in the good graces of Black men who she's talked so bad about for years now. So it's a total reversal. You have to be careful of these type of people. They're called two-faced for a reason.
Yes.
And
yes.
When I think of Two-Face, I think of the Batman version. That's the Two-Face that you really need to have, because that shows you the good and the bad, and you see it right in front of you. You know, if Two-Faced people had faces like that, we would all be safe, man, because you'll know.
Yeah, to talk to you. Hey, smiling faces.
Yeah.
They don't tell the truth. Hell, that would have been another good cut to open up with.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she went through a whole bunch of tales that she told there. So what we're going to do is pull about maybe 6 or 7 of them. So something that we can about 6 or 7 lies that she told in the span of what, 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, something like that.
She was shitting all over that mic, man.
All right, so this is PolitiFact. Now, a lot of folks who follow me for my fact checking know that when I go out and I provide information, I'm not going to speak about something that I can't come back and say, hey, that is false. Now, the one thing about Candace is that she will either be all the way false, or if you see mostly false, this is where you take a little bit of propaganda. You take a little bit of lie, you take a little bit of truth, you add a little bit of innuendo, and then you just leave open inference without an answer. And that's what propaganda becomes. So in this statement here, now you heard her talk about Planned Parenthood, at least black fathers and everyone being removed out of the home. But I think there was a part of the clip that was missed where you didn't hear this part. So she had stated 79% of Planned Parenthood clinics are in minority neighborhoods. So that was the first part of the lie. This is not by accident. That is by its founder, Margaret Sanger's eugenist design. All right. That was the second lie. So if we scoot down here, we get more into this. Now, again, PolitiFact is a part of the National Fact-Checking Network. So if you needed to verify any information, you could go to places like PolitiFact, Snopes, Reuters, and there's a few others that I've got out here that I may need to go ahead and reshare with folks that are going to check the information that is put out here. So as Dwight said, you don't let Hotep Jones, or what do we call his girlfriend? What do we call Hotep's girlfriend?
Poo Ellis.
Poo Ellis, aka she who crafts the shits on the mic. Yeah, you can't let these two folks get together, because what you have, no pun intended, is a shit show.
There you go, right there.
You see what I did there? You have a shit show. All right, yeah. So there is conflicting evidence about how many Planned Parenthood clinics are located in minority neighborhoods. That's the first part where she goes off in this lie. The second part, Sanger has been criticized for supporting eugenics, but scholars say her allegiance to the movement concerned public health, not race, which again is true. The minute you start talking about eugenics, everyone is thinking about how it is right now, where we know that it's mostly talked about in white supremacist, white nationalist spaces, talking about breeding out all the imperfections to where there's only one strong race left, which to them is the white race. And we're talking about the bigoted aspect, because we all know there are black folks who can be just as racist, Asian, Hispanic. So we can't put that on looking at the fact that Miss Sanger was interested in eugenics in its infancy. That's something that people aren't considering here, because in the very beginning, which I'll show information here, she was interested in eugenics before it was bastardized by the Nazis. And then the concept, which is what she was working with, was taken from that and molded into what we know it to be today, which is proliferating the Aryan race. That is not what she was about, but there's enough information to say differently. But we will get into that. She also didn't support abortion, and none of her clinics performed the procedure until after her death. So for those of you not familiar with Planned Parenthood, or at least the beginnings of it, Margaret Sanger was the person who started that. Now, there were 3 other people who assisted her in that endeavor, and that's still a show that I haven't done as of yet. But nonetheless, Margaret Sanger was all about using contraception before abortion. Whereas she recognized, oh, hey, my bad, like someone just popped up here. Let's see who this is. Comments. Fatty. Yo, what's going on, Fatty? Hey, Dwight, remember when you and Fatty sat up here and talked shit about my setup when I was still using OBS?
Yeah, I remember Fatty, man. I hope he's doing well, man.
What's good? Yeah. So again, folks, something to keep in mind here. Let's make sure that when we get together, understand, if you see Dwight here with me, or the council members, Poo Ellis and Hotep Jones, do not have control of the mic. Facts do not choose sides. All right, so again, this goes into, for this particular fact check, of how Candace was sitting here and just blazing and throwing one lie after the other, citing statistics. And again, 79% of Planned Parenthood are in minority neighborhoods. No. But if you don't know any better than what to look for, then yes, you'll believe that.
What's going on, Fatty?
Oh, here you go with your hating ass. Forgive my language. No OBS, no problems.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Sometimes I can't stand you, Fatty. I'm gonna tell you that shit right now. But yeah, just to take a quick second here, folks. I had Fatty and Dwight on the show, and it was bad. It wasn't anything Dwight and I hadn't seen before, where we were good with just 2 people. using my little laptop, which I didn't think about. But the minute you added a third person, the audio, the video start clipping in, clipping out. Oh, it was a bad run. Even though I figured it out, I'd forgotten to think about the fact that my little 16 gig of memory computer was not set up for multiple audio streams.
No.
So yeah. So Dwight had been saying, yo, John, man, why don't you go to StreamYard? You know, why you keep doing this? Because we're engineers. And I'm the more hard-headed of us two, obviously, because I said, I can fix this. I can do it. Yeah, I made it work within the scope of my laptop and its parameters. But once you get to a certain part to whereas you got no more left, it turns into a shitty show. Yeah, hence why we're on StreamYard.
It was engineering by Legos, man.
Right up here laughing his ass off in the background. Hey, you know what, Fatty? I said, you see if you got time. You still on your show right now, in between takes, or you just here to troll me and talk about that old OBS system I had? Yeah, I tell you what. So I don't know. I think Fatty normally has his super panel on Thursday. So, like I said, man, it's just us here at the moment. But this is still going to be recorded, and we're going to have the replay gang here. So let's do this. Hey, Fatty, if you still have a minute or two, man, let me go ahead and put the link down here if you want to get up here with us and clown for a second or two. But as I was saying, folks, so Candaceowens told a whole bunch of lies here. So basically, her thing is what a lot of Black folks will take information for, being that, oh, look at this. They've got all these clinics here, and they're trying to control the Black population. Why do we have so many Planned Parenthood stations here? And what's been told to the Black community is that, oh, he said he moved into Fridays. Ah, okay, cool. So, like I said, Fat, if you had a second, you want to get up here and clown and be a part of this, by all means, man, welcome to. If not, hey, you know we're going to acknowledge you in the chat. So, Planned Parenthood has been boogeyman forever. And that's mainly because of the fact that we know that abortion was an issue when we're talking about Roe versus Wade, when that was passed in the early 70s. But people don't understand, and again, this is where knowledge comes in, is that there were no abortions, per se, that we know it to be these days, performed inside of a Planned Parenthood clinic until after Margaret Sanger's death. But that was something that she was 100% against, because she felt that contraception should be the way. So in her mindset, what she wanted to do first and foremost was to ensure that if there were problems that women were having with having children or birth control or just feminine needs, she wanted to ensure that contraception first and foremost was the approach. Now, of course, abortion did exist back then in the 20s and in the 30s, but it was dangerous. You've heard the talk of what Dwight to talk about the wire hangers and all this madness back in the day, or just the cleanliness of these supposed clinics. That's why she was herself all about finding a better way for women to have control of their health needs. Oh, yes, yeah. So yeah, Fatty is booked again, back to back. Understood, man. You know how it goes.
Another thing you have to look at, John, with Sanger and the Planned Parenthood, is that was a new concept. And it was very controversial at the time because of the newness of this concept. We're talking about in the 60s, right? 50s or 60s, right? Where this
early between the 30s and 60s, yeah. So we'll say that period, that gap.
So it's a period of where you did not have this type of service available to people, and modesty was still a factor back in those days, where people, you knew people were having sex, okay, but these types of services weren't readily available, so it was controversial, and also the fact that mostly they were situated in minority areas. So that played a little bit of a boogeyman effect. That had a boogeyman effect to it. So, so you like you said earlier, some people take some of the Hotep Jones information as gospel. So if Hotep Jones said, what is going on over here?" and he gets a sliver of information, that's all it takes is a sliver, unresearched information to proliferate in the neighborhood. Next thing you know, you got a whole bunch of people with wrong information about what Planned Parenthood is and how it came to be. And all it takes is for any kind of groundswell to actually happen, and then you have a whole bunch of information out here in the streets, un you know undebatable. Most people don't debate what they don't understand. So a lot of information. We're still at the point, I think, where people have to really get into educating themselves about what they're interested in. You cannot take information and consider that to be fact if you haven't done your own research and review. That's just bottom line. I could tell you the water is wet, or water is dry, and you believe me, and I make you look like a fool because you haven't researched and reviewed it yourself. I could tell you anything. You have to do your own research, and that's where we're at with this, especially with Planned Parenthood.
So I'll add this here about doing your own research. Now, I don't know if you've seen the shirt that I've got up here, but it says,
That's Booker T, right?
yeah, Booker T, yep. Lie does not become the truth. Wrong does not become right. Good does not become bad just because the masses accept it, or the majority accepts it, excuse me. And that's what you get here. You get folks who will obviously listen to something because you've got a larger crowd who is spouting this out, but nobody wants to be that one person who says that's not true. They don't know if it's true or not, but because you've got the majority stating that, then okay, we'll go with it. Say it enough times, it becomes true. And by the way, it says here, hey, thanks, Joe Cool, for stopping in. Hey, found us through Fatty, got a new sub. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Hey, again, thanks for dropping in. This is what we do, man. We always have the conversation from the perspective of research. There's nothing that's going to be said without first having someone take a look at it. So we're not up here Hotep Jonesing for the most part. We're not just spitting from the dome or whatever. This is going to be something that we'll check in before we put it out in the streets. So again, what you've got here is the statement of 79% of the clinics are in Black neighborhoods. Now I'm still at the part where they're talking about the neighborhood aspect, but let me do this because they're going to make mention of this particular organization in a moment. And the goodmonger.org site here. Now, about the time that Candace made this claim, she did not take the time, as I was saying, to go back and verify on whether or not what she was saying is true. Now, this is back in 2014. So again, Candace picked up something that was already a lie that had been circling around the globe, and she happened to use it again. So I went back and took a look because I knew I'd heard something more or less about the lie where Planned Parenthood targeted Black women. So again, this came back out in June 2014. Now, yes, the information we'll say is 10, 11 years old, but it's still the truth. It was true then and it's true now. Claim that most abortion clinics are located in Black or Hispanic neighborhoods is false. And again, this is one of the places that you can go to that is a fact checker that will provide information based upon facts, not the fiction that can easily be thrown out. John Castle. My name is John Henry. All right. Welcome to it. So this is pretty good. This is just a quick clip of it. You'd have to download, I think, register, or some of these sites where you have to register and to get more information. So look at this as being an abstract for anybody who's going to college or anything like that, where you know you have to do papers and you have to put information in the background. Are we celebrating Doc Holiday or steak driving? Okay, let me go with this. He's saying steal.
Oh, he's correct in the last statement. Steal driving.
All right, here we go. Or steal driving. Oh, so we're talking about the John Henry legend, huh?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Still driving. No, man, we're more or less here. The topic here on the upper corner here, I'll just let you know. Lies Black conservatives tell other Blacks. So that's what we're doing here today. We're going back and taking a look at, I'm asking. Yeah, we're going back here and we're taking a look at some of the lies that get proliferated inside the Black community without anyone pushing back, and it's taken as is. So what we're trying to do is make sure that anytime there's any misinformation that's put out there, somebody's there to make sure that the course correction is put in place, and that's what we're doing right about now. So the background. Anti-abortion activists often claim that most abortion clinics are located in predominantly Black or Hispanic neighborhoods. However, this claim, offered as supposed proof that abortion providers target minority women, is false. So the key findings. Hear an echo? Oh, never mind. I thought I heard my voice back for a second.
No, we're good.
About 6 in 10 abortion providers are located in neighborhoods where more than half of residents are white. Fewer than 1 in 10 abortion providers are located in neighborhoods where more than half of residents are Black. Some 13% of abortion providers are located in neighborhoods where more than half of residents are Hispanic. So that pretty much blows it all out of the water at that point. Oh, hey, Auntie. Also here. I'm just listening, my bad. No problem, John. No problem, man. Hey, we take a minute to clown here and there if we do, but for the most part, we get down to the facts. But we always take a second or two to go ahead and acknowledge everyone in the chat. All right, so moving on, as you can see here, as I was saying, Dwight, she flat out just told lies. But because of the fact no one was there to check her, what does that tell you about the Breakfast Club folks who are listening to that? Dwight, give me your take on that. Let me fall back for a second.
Well, I don't have a problem with the Breakfast Club because that's where you should not like center yourself around them as your news source. They're there for entertainment. Charlemagne he's entertainment. He's not a source. So they're not going to check. We're in a society now where there isn't going to be checkers, in place where you can say, hey, that's not right, because that's not what they are up there for. They're trying to get ratings, man. So she's a ratings bonanza. That's what she is. The problem that you're identifying is that she's parading herself as a source of truth, and she's not getting fact checked. It's happening after the fact. So the problem is most people may be swayed by her poo-pooing on the mic, if you will. So yeah, you just kind of have to recognize who and what is being said, and you kind of have to take that as entertainment. It really is just entertainment. I mean, no matter what she looked like up there, she's not providing facts, like you just said. She's up there grifting. She's trying to get ads. She's trying to get sponsors for whatever shows that she's into. So you just kind of have to take that as food for that show, and you can't take that as information. You should not come out of that show parroting anything that she said. Not at all.
Agreed.
Not at all.
So moving on, definitions. This analysis categorizes abortion providers in two ways to offer the most comprehensive overview possible. All comprises all 1,720 providers known to provide abortion care in 2011. Now, again, keep in mind, this article was done in 2014, but as I said before, truth has no expiration date, and facts do not choose sides. 400 plus compromises the 576 abortion providers that provided 400 or more abortions in 2011. These facilities accounted for 33% of all providers and 92% of all abortions in 2011. Now, the methodology. Using the results of its most recent census of all known abortion providers in the United States, we're going back to 2011 to 2014. Again, this article being done in 2014. Guttmacher examined the racial and ethnic makeup of neighborhoods in which abortion providers were located in 2011, the most recent year of which data are available. Neighborhood characteristics are based on information from each U.S. zip code from the 2007 to 2011 American Community Survey. And again here, for further context, abortion and women of color, the bigger picture. So
the information, it just goes to show that the information is out there. If you take her as a news source, then that's on you, man. That's on you, because if you're interested in what she's talking as fact, you would just do a simple, like you said, just do your own research. Get it for yourself.
So John is saying good on them, as you were saying also, if I'm taking this correctly, John was saying good on them, but doesn't mean they are leaders, and that's, yes, John, precisely what's being said. It doesn't mean that they're leaders. They're entertaining someone. They have a guest, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be up to date or even enthralled in the information that's being put out there by the guests in order to fact check it.
Absolutely.
Babies are the most precious things that exist. Is that controversial? No, by no means. No one is saying that the babies are controversial. Where controversy comes in is going to be the perspective that each particular side holds on the issue. Now, we know that we have two sides of that, but the question that comes back is, are we presenting it to where the most available and the most accurate information about the conversation is being heard? And in this particular instance, it was not, based upon how Candace got in there and just rolled through it, just telling some stuff. All right. So as Dwight said here, she is the poo-poo Ellis of the conversation.
She's looking for sponsors.
Yeah, I'm not mad at Charlemagne, but I don't care what he says. Now, just to take a side street, yes, I have listened to Charlemagne talk, and he is one of the folks that I noticed. He says, yo, man, I don't like either one of them, but yet you're not saying anything that is accurately representing both sides to a degree as well. I listen to Charlemagne talk, and it's just someone making a statement because he's got the opportunity to speak on the microphone. Now, Mike Imhotep, who we saw at the beginning of the show here, who was providing the video of Candaceowens that we saw, made the exact same statement or something similar to what I'm saying. So whereas Charlemagne does not know his history. Now, Michael Imhotep likes to say that in order to be a good political commentary type of individual, you've got to know history, because you have to have an understanding of what you're talking about now to know where it was derived from. So I would agree with him on that. Dwight, what would be your perspective of anyone giving comment in front of folks larger than 3 or 4 people? Should that individual have some type of ability to assure that there is fact in their speech, or does it not matter because you've got somebody around within earshot?
Well, for him, he has the audience, and they're paying him to be interesting. One of the things that I was told, I study comedians. I've listened to thousands of comedians and their sets, and one of the things that was said, and it makes sense as it pertains to Charlemagne. They said most times you don't have to be funny; you just have to be interesting. That's what Charlemagne comes in at. He's not informative; he's interesting with his opinions. He reads, I could tell he reads a little bit, but not as much as he should to have the audience that he does. You know what I mean? He has a large audience, and he just kind of spouts out opinions. He's got some books behind him, but not a lot, though, I don't believe. He's an entertainer. He doesn't have time.
He doesn't really. And when you listen to folks who make the beacon of information, people who are media personalities, you've got nothing but what was that song? Self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. And that's where we're rolling.
Right,
we don't have folks who are making it a point to ensure that anything that is said to us is said from a place of accuracy. It's okay to not agree with what's being said. But if you're going to not agree with me, let's at least be having the conversation about the same topic. For example, if I were to say to Zyrex, who has been up here, I guess once or twice, if I were to say, hey, Zyrex, that is a blue Oldsmobile out here. And she says, no, it's not. It's a burgundy Volkswagen. We can't have a conversation because we can't even agree on the topic of discussion that we want to have.
So you don't have a point of reference. You don't have a centerpiece to even talk. Yeah. So
exactly. All right, saying the same thing. If you're going to be a political commentator, you got to be as accurate as possible.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you cannot leave anything to chance. I don't mind anyone disagreeing with me, but disagree with me on the facts. Don't disagree with me on an inference that you're looking to substantiate your narrative just so you can be heard. Yeah, don't make this about a culture war or something that doesn't have anything to do with the topic. You just want the win. No, we can't have that. At least that's what we are not going to do over here, per se.
Absolutely.
I subbed up. I'm used to debating panels and chats and stuff. You guys are cool. I appreciate it, John. A conversation that I was having with Fatty earlier today is this platform primarily is education first, all right, and entertainment second. If you draw any entertainment out of what we're doing, we appreciate that. Now, of course, there is the entertainment factor, whereas we'll do the shows when music had a message, and we'll just take that particular show to pick music from different decades, and we'll play it, and then we'll have a conversation about where were you when this song came out. And everyone gets a minute to go ahead and just, gig on what they were doing back in 1985 or 1997 or something along those lines, depending upon when you were born. Now, key note, as I've mentioned before, this platform I put together primarily for folks over the age of 50 to have a place where we can come and have our conversation and forgive my language, not be bombarded with, oh, no, shut up, old nigga, go take a nap, old nigga, or nothing like that, because the folks we're having the conversation with were not knowledgeable about what we're discussing. And this matter of fact is why Dwight and I are having this discussion today. We have too many folks who were born in the millennial age, let's say born in 95, or let's say born in 1990 going forward, mid to late millennials, who are 30 something years removed from some of the most poignant actions in history. 1964, the Civil Rights Act. 1965, the Voting Rights Act. Of course, then you also have affirmative action, Operation Push, Rainbow Coalition, the creation of the Civil Rights Department side of the Department of Justice, I want to say in 1964. Dwight and I were born after Jim Crow had ended, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the proliferation and the pushing of Jim Crow antics has stopped. So I can look back and talk about top shelf racism that I've seen back in my day that a majority of the folks on social media now today can only watch movies and think of. if they do think about it. So as a result, we have people who are not ready to stand and face what we're looking at right now, which is the reemergence of the Jim Crow era. So the only way that we can have people ready for that is to provide some place where you can get your information from if you're not going to read the newspaper or follow anything on TV as far as news. Somebody's got to give you something that is accurate that you can sink your teeth into. And that's what Dwight and I right now are aiming to do. Dwight, did you want to add to that?
No, actually, you pretty much summarized it up. It's yeah. I don't have anything to add. You kind of wrapped that nice little bow on that.
Well, thank you.
Nice bow.
FYI, Dwight and I go back 25 plus years of friendship, so we've known each other for a minute. So when we get up and say some things, it's because we've seen some things as well. Maybe not what everybody else has, but we can confirm some of the moments in history that a few of you guys may read about. We were there. So recall that I said before that the 2014 Guttmacher Institute statistic that we were looking at would be mentioned. Here it is right here. So this is pretty much saying what we already saw previously. In 2014, the Guttmacher Institute published its own report to address claims that most abortion clinics are located in predominantly Black or Hispanic neighborhoods. It was broader in scope. Again, I just had the abstract version, but this is pretty much going through what it came out with. It was broader in scope, though, and Planned Parenthood was only one of the providers included in the analysis. The report, which was based in 2011 consensus data, found that fewer than 1 in 10 clinics were located in mostly Black neighborhoods, and that 6 in 10 abortion providers were located in neighborhoods where more than half of residents are white. So what does that tell you, folks? It tells you that this is information that was corroborated, to which I will call correlational information. You have to be able to correlate what you're looking at with something that also can sustain that. We're not talking about a lying website going to another lying website. We're talking about a fact-checking site that has been recognized as a fact-checking site, and you're getting information from another site that is also verified in the information that it shares. So again, that's what we're trying to do here.
Oh yeah, so it kind of goes to what we were talking about before. You have to really kind of do your own research. You kind of have to look at, regardless of what's being said around you, especially in certain neighborhoods, there is a downtrodden viewpoint of what life is, and oh yeah, that's why things are going bad, because they got the Planned Parenthood, they blah 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 blah. So you kind of get into this mindset of woe is me. They got the Planned Parenthood right around the corner, right? That's how I say it too, in that type of voice, right? They got that. They're killing us, they're killing us. You know what I mean? That type of stuff. So you kind of have to kind of do your own research and review and get out of the group think. I've never been a fan of group think. I don't think it informs. It's really a bully tactic as well, And that's one of the things that happens in certain environments is groupthink is the same thing as being bullied into information. You got to be a free thinker. You have to have the courage to kind of do your own research, your own review. And if this PolitiFact has this information out there, you can't just say, well, I don't know about that. Well, who are you to say that? And you go, oh, I'd rather get my information from Hotep Jones. I trust Hotep. You know what I mean? And Candaceowens, she ain't never been wrong. Oh, okay. I didn't know she was classified as a scholar.
Actually, for whatever reason, it's like I was saying, man. The minute she said Kamala Harris is not Black, I already knew she was full of bull, right? But that just more or less just hung the ornament on the Christmas tree at that point. And then
a lot of
so many Black folks, just arguing like, oh, she's telling truth, man. Judge Joe Brown said it also. And I did a show that I traced it all the way down, the whole ideology of her. The white guy in her family was her great-great-grandfather. All right. He came from Ireland. Patrick Finnegan. Then he went to Jamaica, found him a little bit of chocolate. All right. So therefore, he had Patrick A. Finnegan, which was Kamala's great grandfather. He, in turn, him and his wife had a daughter named Iris. Iris married someone, a black man, and had Kamala's grandmother. And then Kamala's grandmother married a black man and had Kamala's father. And of course, Kamala's father married her mother from India, and they had Kamala. So
you dug into it.
Dug it out, put it right there. And do you know them ninjas? Forget my language. They said I don't want to say.
Jones don't want to hear that information, man.
Don't want to hear it. Had the nerve. Don't even get street cred or respect. Yeah, John's talking about that other side of the street, that aspect where we all have our. Well, let me break away from the story for a second. So, John, what I'm hearing from you, and I'll be able to speak on that. The whole aspect here is that yes, everyone has their downtrodden. So we know what ours looks like, right? But if you've never been like from Tennessee, where I'm from, and you see the poor blacks, but you also see the poor whites. If you see the whites who are upper middle class or well-to-do, the level of embarrassment on their face is like, you've seen one of ours. And then blacks like, oh, so you talk about us like this. Look what you get. That doesn't look too different from us. And what else? Yeah, imagine being poor and you can't dance or get laid. Terrible. Like, he's over here wilding, obviously. You must be.
Yes, he is. And
yeah, he's wild. Oh, here we go. All right, yeah. So we got the troll patrol on right now.
Yeah, that's what I thought, man. That's what I thought from the beginning.
Yeah, Jamaican on equal black, dude. But he says he's kidding though, because everyone knows. I'll put it this way, just in case you don't know. Even though John's been funny right here, you have to understand something here. You've got to know that when the slave trade was going on, when blacks were being taken from Africa, and I have to tell this to people, when they took blacks from Africa, they weren't stealing slaves. And this is what people don't seem to realize. And Dwight, whenever you're free, we'll have to do another show on this because I'm going to give more detail to that. They didn't steal slaves. No, they took engineers. They took doctors. They took scientists. They took teachers. They took architects. They took artists. This is what was
blacksmiths.
There you go.
Took farmers. They took everything. Yeah.
So
you're right.
Yeah. So yeah, we're with you, John. We know you're clowning, man. We're good here. But as we say, as Dwight and I are saying, that's what was taken from Africa. But the concept here is that once they had taken these folks from Africa, they're like, well, what do we do here? How do we make sure we get the same amount of work from them that we saw them performing or doing in their own country? So they said, why don't we take them to an environment that's similar to where we stole them from? Yes, I said stole or kidnapped. Let's take them someplace to where we have a climate that they're familiar with. So therefore, before any slave was in North America, and this is why I have an issue with, I say, the foundational black Americans, or as you hear me say it, Dwight, the foundational black assery. All right, because that's just foolery incarnate. Now we've got blacks discriminating against other blacks because they weren't tracing their lineage back to slavery. But at the same time, these clowns aren't stopping to think, do you know why you were able to trace your lineage to slavery? It's because of the Africans who were brought over here. The stupidity of it. But anyway, that's why you have blacks and
and when you put it like that, it does sound stupid.
Sounds stupid, right? There's Hotep Jones. All right, yeah, blacks from Brazil. They're in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, Barbados, Antigua. And when you see those dark skinned Hispanics who never spoken English before, it's like, people, do you not realize that these folks are descended from Africa? And even in America, you don't see it or hear it a lot. You have Black Mexicans. And these are folks who've never spoken English before, but they, like everybody else, are descended from Africans, and they are treated the worst. Just like if you go to Brazil, you have dark-skinned Spanish speakers and light-skinned Spanish speakers. It's the same thing. The dark you are, the less gracious you are treated. Oops. Got John back in. My tribe didn't get citizenship until 1910. I don't care about all that stuff. And my grandma is Black, my mom is white, so I'm the king of grievance Olympics. I got you, man, both sides. I'm white skinned, though. No one is scared of me. And what was that thing when we were kids? Dwight, they said, oh, here come one of the dark ones. If you, remember that? I know the joke used to be, that if we were still back in them days, you'd be working outside, John. I mean, man, F you. And it's always that little light-skinned kid acting crazy, but it was all in fun because we all knew that when it got down to it, everybody's Black. But yeah, just to make that side street there, yeah. Her being Candace saying that Kamala, her saying that Kamala wasn't Black was the epitome of stupidity. Oh, Zyrex. Oh, we got all the Cali folks in here shouting it out. San Diego, 29 Palms military installation. I remember driving by that. I brag about being undercover. All right. So, again, as I stated here, we can see by having the conversation with Candace that she is being disingenuous. Second question. Planned Parenthood was a way of controlling the Black population. True or false? We know that is a falsehood. No doubt about it. But when you hear this said, the question you have to ask yourself is, where does any of that information come from? Where are people getting that from? So there was
Hotep.
I'm trying to find this, but there was a time where Ben Carson, or no, Gifted Hands, right? We're all familiar with Ben Carson, right?
Yeah,
yeah. So Cuba Gooding Jr. played his part.
Yeah, he did a good job too, man.
So what you had, I'm trying to see if I can pull this up right now. So basically what you had was Ben Carson telling people that, yeah, there's a Planned Parenthood targets Black neighborhoods to control the population. Okay, I found what I was looking for. And once again, here we go. But as you called it, here we go. We have even the most prominent of us supposedly pulling Hotep Jones type nonsense. Now this is going back to 2015.
Yeah.
GOP presidential candidate Dr. Ben Carson Wednesday accused Planned Parenthood of disproportionately opening clinics in Black neighborhoods as a way to control the population.
Yeah.
Now ask me if that is a level of craziness right there. To control the population. He sat out here and literally told that lie.
Yeah.
Let me close something for this so we can speed this up here. So again, Ben Carson was also, I didn't add him in this because he's not one of the primary Blacks that I look at for spreading misinformation, but he does. I know who Margaret Sanger is, and I know she believed in eugenics and that she was not particularly enamored with Black people, Carson said in an appearance on Your World with Neil Cavuto. One of the reasons you find most of the clinics in Black neighborhoods is so you can find a way to control the population, said Carson, who is the only Black candidate among the GOP field of 17. All right, so obviously I'm going to go ahead and call that out because that was a lie. All right, it was a lie that again, you will find coming from the conservative side of the house because they are anti-abortion. But a lot of people do not seem to realize that Margaret Sanger, as we discussed at the very beginning, she was not in favor of abortion as being the first tool of dealing with female health. Or
yeah, she was about public health.
Yeah, she was public health. So why don't we just go ahead and just get into aspect here? I think there's Ben Carson. Okay, yeah, we just covered that. No, it's talking about the African American sharecroppers. Here we go. So eugenics always seems to come up because you can see it right here. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Let me go ahead and bring that back up. Excuse me. So we can see it right here when we start talking about Margaret Sanger. We've got to talk about the connection to Germany. And no, now I've seen in other articles, but I just picked this article because it's more condensed to work with. So no, Margaret did not have any connection with Nazi Germany. But of course, I've got another article that I'm going to show everybody in a moment when we have the Hotep, check it out, Dwight, the Hotep experience. The Hotep experience. And inside the Hotep experience, you can go ahead and tell what everything you need to. And anyone who's within earshot who listens, they're going to take it with that because I said it with my chest. Now, I've seen people on panels who said, you know, I don't care if he's wrong. This is a woman I heard one day. I think her name was called Just J. Zyrex, let me know if you remember Just J. She used to be on Hamp's channel a couple of years ago. I haven't seen her around in about a year or two. But Just J made a comment one day that, you know what? I don't care if my man is wrong. Just as long as he says it with his chest, I'm going to back him up. So wait, so you're going to sit here and this guy's going to tell a falsehood. And just because he said it with authority, you're going to back him up because your man spoke with 10 toes down. What sense does that even make?
Yeah.
Yeah, Zyrex remembers her also. Okay, I knew I wasn't bugging on here. So with Margaret Sanger, the lie here was that she was a part of the Nazi Party. She was a part of the eugenics movement that wanted to ensure that the Black race was minimized or exterminated. Now, all of that was a falsehood, mainly because of the fact that she herself was interested in not the aspect of breeding out the inefficient races. She was interested in breeding out defects. That is what got her involved with eugenics in the beginning. And again, I say this before the Nazi Party got a hold of eugenics, looked at what was there and decided, you know what? Yes, I do believe, I think we can breed out everybody else and just have what we need. Remember when we were in Germany, how the German who spoke English, what he sounded like?
Yeah.
Yeah, but let me stop that. But basically, what the Nazis did is looking at the information from eugenics, they decided we'll do one better. We'll go ahead and breed out the races that we think are inefficient so we can ensure that Zyrex, don't you laugh at that. I was wrong for that, all right? My bad. Yeah, don't laugh at that. But anyway, the Nazis decided that we're going to breed out anything inefficient until we can make our strong Aryan race. All Margaret was doing was, as you said, Dwight, she was focusing on public health. That's why she was interested in eugenics in the beginning, not from what we know of eugenics today, but in its earliest form, its purest form, where it was looking at how to improve the human race. And she wanted to find a way to breed out birth defects so people weren't suffering, primarily women weren't suffering during childbirth or pregnancy with issues because of not knowing the health of the child or what could be done to ensure a healthy child was born.
Hey, John, check the chat, the studio chat.
Yep. All right, so we could be the majority right now. I think we did that one. Zarek says, yes, she remembers. She remembers Just Jay. And also Zarek's laughing at my poorly behaved joke about what the Germans sound like when speaking English. So I think, oh, here we go. Hey, thanks, Zyrex. Also, she says she's agreeing, not with me telling the joke, but what we're talking about, Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger was not about getting rid of Black folks. We should come up to that in a moment here. She was not about neutralizing and getting rid of the Black race or controlling the Black population. We'll see that in a moment. But we're getting to that part where we start talking about sterilization. Now, this is what the Nazis wanted eugenics for, to find out how do we work closely to sterilize those inferior races. That is not what Margaret Sanger was about. But to hear anyone who does not know the full story or who doesn't have the information that I'm sharing right now, they are going to say that, oh, she was part of the Nazi party. She was not. She also said books of hers had been destroyed and that she had intellectual friends who were sent to concentration camps to put to death. Sanger did not have a connection to the Nazis, but a loose association comes through her involvement in the eugenics movement, like we were just discussing. American and German eugenicists closely collaborated, and the Nazis reportedly borrowed much of their 1933 so-called sterilization law from American models. That law allowed the government to forcibly sterilize people with alleged genetic disorders. I think this is where it ends. Yep. So basically, as we can see here, as it was stating, she had nothing to do with Nazi Germany. She had no connections with it. But because of the fact that her earlier ties of learning about eugenics and looking at it from a public health perspective was noted, oh, she must be with the Nazis. So again, we have false information put forward. All right, now, this is an article, and I'm gonna leave this up here for a second. Anyone is interested, where you can find more information about Margaret Sanger, where it goes into the perspective that Dwight and I are talking about, where you have the Hotep Jones effect, ambitious feminist and racist eugenist. This entire article focuses on spreading misinformation about her. Let me do this instead. Let's type in eugenics. So we can see the word is used 10 times. However, Sanger's motivations behind this work had dark roots in racism and eugenics, demonstrating the importance of acknowledging the dangerous rhetoric of her work and how it may have impacted social groups around her. So I want you to take a look at this, folks. Now, we're not going to go all the way through this because we'll probably need to step it up a bit. But again, I want you to see the difference between an information that is not researched and allowed to be posted because you have access versus something that can be corroborated. So as we go through here, you're going to see more and more times where her work is going to be discarded as being racist. However, there were far more important inspirations behind Sanger's work than quick Google searches delve into. Specifically, Sanger's writing shed light on underlying motives of Sanger in her movement toward family planning, eugenics, and racism. Sanger strongly backed the field of eugenics and saw birth control as an innovative way to medically allow for limiting the abilities of certain populations to reproduce. Again, this is falsehood. If you recall from the first article that we were looking at, it already stated that she had nothing to do with the Nazi Party. The information that we're reading right now is strictly about how the Nazi Party pursued the eugenics approach after they became privy of the program. So you can pretty much see how this is going here. Now, this is going to be an article that is strictly about misinformation. Dwight, your thoughts, man?
Yeah, you could see that this is a public hanging. You just have to really you have to consider your sources. University of Chicago, think about this. Chicago is the actual headquarters of the Nation of Islam. If you know anything about the Nation of Islam and the way that they disseminate information, and you know that Chicago is the headquarters for the Nation of Islam, you know that there are people that are close to the Nation of Islam in ideology. They may not be Nation of Islam members, but they are closely associated with them in their mentality. So Chicago, University of Chicago is a university that's centered in the city of Chicago. So with that being said, they're not going to have a positive. They're not going to think of Margaret Sanger as somebody that's positive, especially in their city. You kind of have to think about these things. I've said this many times before. When I come across people who are closely associated in ideology with Muslims, I go back to the history of how they started. So if you have someone that's closely associated with them in their mentality, most likely they're going to be more similar to Hotep Jones than a Dr. Henry, John Henry, or something of that nature. So you kind of have to think about these things. University of Chicago, that was a public hanging. That was a public hanging. And she can't debate, she can't protect herself, you know. So yeah, you have to think about these things. Consider your sources. Have more than one source as well. I would say have more than 5 sources, actually.
I think what I may end up having to do here is to do another show showing folks how to go about doing their fact checking, how to find sources.
It was pretty cool how you had these sources available. It was really pretty cool.
It was, again, it started when I began to notice that you had an article that would come from, we'll say, we'll pick somebody in the minute, C-SPAN. You can't find a more neutral spot than C-SPAN. Then I would see the same topic covered, let's say on a CNN or MSNBC. Now, even though it's still keeping with the same trajectory of it, you're getting more of a perspective of a left-wing slant, whereas they're sympathizing more with, let's say, the plight of immigrants or wanting to come to America, DACA. And then you look at, let's say, Fox News, for example, or let's say maybe Breitbart, and you see, well, yeah, the border is just being, it's besieged right now with these immigrants coming over here having kids.
They're coming across in droves. Get your guns.
It's an invasion, you know, and you're listening to this. Like, wait a minute. I'm not here. I'm seeing it where the news originated, starting from C-SPAN. I'm still hearing the element of what C-SPAN is talking about. People are coming over here because of war, because of poverty, looking for the opportunity to improve their life. And then you slide over to the other side. They're attacking the borders every day. They're coming in droves. They're taking over.
They're eating the dog. They're eating your dogs, man.
Hide your cats, hide your wife, you know, all this type of stuff. And then I'm seeing people out here. Did you see what they said on Fox News? But wait a minute, did you look at any other news source? So we'll say that you can have for when you go off from the center, we'll say on the left side, you have CNN, NBC, CBS, ABC, Reuters, The Guardian, The Hill, The Root, you know, just to name a few. And then you look on the other side, you have Fox, Newsmax, OAN, Breitbart, Blaze, Red State. No, anything that you see that's talking about an immigrant came to America, if you talk to the left side of it, it'll be the immigrant came to America looking for opportunity. You go to the right side, the immigrant came to America to vote in elections to get rid of white people. They're here to undermine everything. Like, holy shit. Are you serious? Pardon my language.
Stories, man.
So I tell people, immigration was never an issue until folks other than whites were coming to America looking to make their money. The first law on the books, well, one of the first laws in the book was the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act. And this act was aimed at trying to prevent the Chinese from coming into America because it was believed that they were taking the jobs that the European descendant settlers did not want. Therefore, they were making the rates extremely low and not competitive to whereas the white settlers would work for it. So that's where we have our first taste of racism. Immigration had nothing to do with the quality of people saying what they were able to provide as far as work. It had everything to do that they were anything other than white settlers. Blacks, we were already here. So what else were you going to do to us? We're already enslaved in chains and more or less subjugated. But still something to think about. Dwight, I know you may have to roll a little bit, man. Is there anything else you want to put in here before I step back into it?
No, I just want to thank you again for sharing your platform. I appreciate the time to kind of talk about this. It is important as we now go into this next phase. AI. I won't go too deep into it. What I'll say is that as we go into this next phase, information, how you research it, how you review it, is going to become important. Lest you be lazy and get your information from really convenient sources where you don't really have to do too much work, you'll become you'll become a robot. You'll become a bot, is what they call it in the AI speak. So you want to make sure that you're able to, while we can, develop your own systems of information. Make sure that you're not part of the groupthink era. We're quickly becoming that with the latest developments politically, where if I say something 10 times and it's a lie, after the 11th time, you've been beaten into a lie. So you have to develop these systems. It's very important as we go into this next phases of our society that we keep a hold of research. We keep a hold of the Socratic way of thinking of things, thinking things out, asking questions. Why? And, we hear our kids do it, our nieces, our nephews, our children. They always ask why, because they want to know why they're doing something. The days of just taking information for granted as truth are over. You must use the Socratic method of going about things while we have it.
Emphasis on while we have it, the way things are going.
While we have it. And with that, I thank you guys. I appreciate you letting me share your platform. Very, very poignant conversation we had here. It's really about, it was centered around Black conservatives, but it's about everybody. Know how to do your own research. Television announcers and they're becoming entertainers. We talked about Charlemagne. They're not going to upset their guests and say, that's not true. I don't believe that. That's not what they're up there for. So you have to do your own research, do your own review, be your own scholar. Be your own scholar. That's what I'll leave on.
All right. Well, still appreciate it, man, for the words. And yes, scholarly is the way you got to roll with it. You got to know what you're looking for. I'll add more on that in a minute, but still, as always, Dwight, I appreciate you stopping in when you get the chance, man. Dwight himself, like me, inside of IT, always busy learning and getting stuff done, even past the age of 55 like we are. We still got to get it in because we want to retire too.
Thank you, Zyrix. I think that's how you say it, right? Yep. I appreciate it.
Unless I'm told differently. But again, nice. Thanks, man, for dropping in. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir, man. We'll talk soon, man.
All right. Catch you later.
Yes, sir.
Peace.
Peace.
Again, yeah, that man and I have known each other for the better part of 20 some odd years, but we have our disagreements on topics. But when it comes down to it, we both know that facts do not choose sides. And that's the one thing that I need to make sure that people understand while we go ahead and get this cleared up, because we got a few more topics here, and I've got a few more tags we want to go through. So let me start getting rid of a few of these. Well, actually, I want to step back to one. So again, we're talking about Margaret Sanger right now. So as I was saying, we've seen just in one particular article where information about Margaret Sanger is not verified. Instead, it's saying that she was with the Nazis. She was about sterilizing different races. The whole aspect of this is where we have our Black conservatives who will tell folks, hey, you know, she's with the Nazi party. You know that she wanted to control the births of Blacks. You know that she was about sterilizing Black women. No, she was about none of that. But again, if you don't know where to get your information, you will not find it out. So what we're going to do, I'm glad I didn't close this tab here. We're going to go back over to PolitiFact. All right, so Sanger's views and the Negro Project. Sanger's first birth control clinic opened in 1916 in the Brownsville neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York, which was mostly Irish and Jewish. When she did open a Harlem clinic in the early 1930s, about half of its patients were white. Members of the Black establishment, including W.E.B. Du Bois, and the Black newspaper, the Amsterdam News, supported it. So if you recall, let's go back in this other article that we're reading, where it was talking about how she was against working with the Black folks or with the Negroes. Where is it? Here we go. Specifically, Sanger's American Birth Control League closely collaborated with the Clinical Research Bureau to form the Birth Control Federation of America, or BFCA. Let me read it from here. It's straining my neck. The BCFCA quickly planned the Negro Project, a project that, while claiming to be established for the benefit of the colored people, resulted in the formation of family planning centers that were found to be problematic for many reasons. Now, I want you to listen to the contrast here. Let's go ahead and stay here for a moment. First, these clinics were likely erected. Now, notice, were likely. So when you hear someone say, well, it's likely, it means that there is no proof that substantiates what they're saying. Oh, I forgot to do this here, Zyrax. I love that. Facts don't choose sides. Yes, ma'am. That's something I want you to stick with. So again, we're already seeing here that we've got this jackassery here. Again, first, these clinics were likely erected as experimental clinics aiming to find the best way to reduce or eliminate the Black population in regions densely populated by African Americans. Where in the hell else are you going to get this information corroborated? You're not, except if you go to conservative sites. Again, pro-life versus pro-choice. People do not realize that although Sanger was pro-life, her biggest thing is that she wanted women to have the opportunity to determine what to do with their bodies. Now, still, she was not a fan of abortion at all, but it was discussed in the back recesses of her mind, her ideologies. She did have the understanding that if there were a danger to the mother, then yes, but she did not view abortion as a means of contraception, or excuse me, as far as a means of maintaining a woman's health. Abortion to her was not the answer. Contraceptive logic and knowledge was first and foremost. Now, fact, it wasn't until after her death that Planned Parenthood began performing abortions. But prior to that, Margaret Sanger would have none of that inside of her clinics. So anyway, as was speaking of here, you can see the lies being told right here. So let me read this again. The BFCA quickly planned the Negro Project, a project that, while claiming to be established for the benefit of the colored people, resulted in the formation of family planning centers that were found to be problematic for many reasons. First, these clinics were likely erected as experimental clinics aiming to find the best way to reduce or eliminate the Black population in regions densely populated by African Americans. Additionally, these clinics appeared to be motivated by the ability to test new birth control methods on less valuable populations. So as Dwight had said before, we're talking about someone just shitting on the mic. They've got access to the internet. They can post a few pictures, a few hyperlinks, and they can just go for what they know. Exactly, Zyrex. She was talking about preventative care. The BFCA, which Sanger was a key figure in running, demonstrated clear racial motivations in motivations in erecting these clinics and took actions that would bias the medical field against African Americans for decades to come. All right, so are we getting a vibe for this, folks? Are you seeing what's being done here? Matter of fact, Zyrex, would you like to join me up here in this conversation as we go through here, or maintain your position in the clouds? Let me know when the audio catches up to you. So if we go back over to PolitiFact, we're already having the discussion here. I want you to look at the way this is being discussed, because I think we've already talked about eugenics, the purpose to improve the human race. You know what? Let me go ahead and read this anyway. Although Sanger has been criticized for supporting eugenics. Now, remember, this is coming from PolitiFact. This is a fact-checking site. This is not this randomness that you can get on the internet from anyone who has access to the internet because they can pay a monthly internet bill. Although Sanger has been criticized for supporting eugenics, historians of the movement and scholars who have studied Sanger's life say her opinions largely centered around what would today be considered issues of public health, which is pretty much what Dwight and I have been saying from the beginning, and what Zyrex is hinting at as well. Public health. She was not trying to sterilize anyone or to breed out defective races. She was trying to breed out defects. This is what she was focusing on originally in the beginning phases of when eugenics first came to be, before it was bastardized and turned into what we know today. During Sanger's time, one scholar wrote, the purpose of eugenics was to improve the human race by having people be more healthy through exercise, recreation in parks, marriage to someone free from sexually transmitted diseases, well baby clinics, immunizations, clean food and water, proper nutrition, non-smoking and drinking. Notice, nothing inside of that paragraph was labeling out Blacks didn't deserve, Jewish folks didn't deserve, Hispanics, nothing. She was in it for the original purpose, which was to look at those things that was just discussed. You're not going to have Candaceowens tell you this. You're not going to have Dennis Sperling tell you this. Tim Scott, Byron Donalds, a few other folks in the environment, dare I even throw out Angry Man, a few others. They are not going to tell you these things because PolitiFact, that's just some leftist rag or whatnot. No. As I said before, they are part of a national fact-checking network that allows you to corroborate, verify the information that you have. It will all correlate if you know how to properly do the search. So now we get into the discussion regarding the Negro Project. Those who think Sanger wanted Black genocide often cite the Negro Project, an effort launched in 1939 to bring birth control services, not abortion, to Southern Black communities. Black leaders like Du Bois, as we read in the other article, Mary McLeod Bethune, founder of the National Council of Negro Women, and Reverend Adam Clayton Powell, pastor of the Black Abyssinian Baptist Church, were members of its advisory council. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt was also supportive. So since we've seen this big ass lie being told on this other page, let's go ahead and just keep with this for a moment. Sanger has been criticized for a particular statement from a 1939 letter she wrote advocating that organizers recruit Black ministers for the project. Now, before I read that here, let me go back to this other page here, and I want to go back to where there was misinformation that was spoken directly about what we're getting ready to read here. Here we go. Human race, pivots. Here we go. Now, this is going to go back to what we're discussing here on the PolitiFact page. Now, bear close witness here, all right? Pay attention to what I'm getting ready to read. So the conversation starts around the race of a young girl that they're trying to help. She's African-American. Let me add some context to this. Now, if I happen to go over 2 or 2.5 hours, you know what, so be it. I'm going to go ahead and timestamp this. But as I said before, it is imperative that we get rid of misinformation from blacks to blacks. Sanger clearly emphasized the race of the young girl, or let me go back and just do the whole paragraph. African Americans to better the human race. Where am I? Whoops. Let me get this right here. While these claims of Sanger's personal poor motivations behind the clinics may at first seem far-fetched, Sanger's writings demonstrate that she was likely in agreement with the ideas of using eugenics on specifically African Americans to better the human race, and she knew that she would have to fight in order to ensure she did not come across this way to the public. Now, already you've seen what we've read from PolitiFact. Just that little bit from PolitiFact to show right now that this is a lie. Pure and on its face. This is a lie about her, but let's go ahead and continue on. In The Pivot of Civilization, Sanger spent several pages detailing an anecdote about a black feeble-minded girl whose uncontrolled reproduction resulted in 16 children, all of which either died at a young age or turned into criminals. Sanger clearly emphasized the race of the young girl, which therefore allowed her to generalize these negative traits of uncontrollable and unhealthy populations to all African Americans. In addition to this, Sanger seemingly understood how what she was doing would be perceived and interpreted by the public. Sanger wrote, "The most successful educational approach to the Negro is through a religious appeal. We do not want the word to get out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it occurs to any of their more rebellious members." Sanger therefore clearly understood that only setting up these clinics in southern regions with black populations would be scrutinized and called out for what they truly were. So she sought to find ways to manipulate the public into trusting her clinics. All right, so here we go. Here is the main reason why I read you that information in PolitiFact first before we came back to this, as Dwight was saying, this rag of a piece of information, this hit piece. For example, Sanger recruited the support of Adam Clayton Powell Jr. and Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., and she also actively searched for a black doctor and social worker to join her team. So I'm going to have to take a look at the time period, because you saw here in the other article, there was no mention of Martin Luther King Jr. So I think what we're talking about was in the early to mid 40s, 30s or 40s maybe, but nonetheless, we can already see that there's an inconsistency in what's being printed right now. Sanger then clearly knew that her writings, coupled with the suspicious concentration of clinics in areas with a large black population, would be questioned, requiring her to acquire trustworthy black society figures to support her cause. I'll say it again. Look at that damn lie. So let's go back to the fact-checking site. Now, we already read just a moment ago who were a part of the Negro Project who had her support. Once again, black leaders like Dubois, W.E.B. Du Bois, Mary McLeod Bethune, founder of the National Council of Negro Women, Reverend Adam Clayton Powell, there it is again, pastor of the Black Abyssinian Baptist Church, were members of its advisory council. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt was also supportive. Where in hell do you see Martin Luther King Jr. being a part of that? As I was noting here, as I thought, the time period doesn't even match up. It was a lie. Martin Luther King Jr. was not prominent back in 1939 preaching. Oops. Because this is a sensitive topic. I'll stay in chat for now, John. I apologize. That's all right. Everybody has their level of comfort. And as I've said before, facts don't choose sides. Whether a person is sensitive to the matter or insensitive, the facts never change. So I won't put you in a position to where you don't want to have a conversation about what's being talked about. But what I'm showing you here, folks, that clearly you can see that was nothing but a parade of lies being told by the other side. For this person to say that Martin Luther King Jr. was involved in this whole aspect was done in the late 30s and in the mid 40s. Nowhere in here do you see Martin Luther King Jr. being a part of this. But yet, in this document, this person is trying to say that Martin Luther King Jr. was one of the folks who was involved with this particular project. Now, unless I'm missing something, I'm going to say that a majority of what we're seeing here is already a lie. This is not to be trusted. So going back, Sanger has been criticized for a particular statement from a 1939 letter she wrote advocating that organizers recruit Black ministers for the project. All right, so here we go again. I want you to see this. This is going to be the same statement, but what we're going to do now is get the actual context, because what you have here is information like on YouTube that is clipped. So what we have here is someone who took a particular statement and it was made out of context and it ran away from there. But we just read this, did we not? We don't want word to get out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs. But the other site, it was phrased, we don't want the word to get out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it occurs. And notice, here's this extra part, to any of their more rebellious members. You did not see that over here. We don't want the word to get out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs. And I don't know what else I have to say. You can see the contrast between the two sites, but one of them is a fact-checking site, and that fact-checking site is what we're reading from right now, PolitiFact. But reporting by PolitiFact Georgia found Sanger was advocating. Notice she wasn't against Blacks. She wasn't trying to hoodwink, bamboozle, deceive Blacks. She was an advocate for Blacks. Sanger was advocating for Black doctors and ministers to play leadership roles in the project to avoid misunderstandings. She was not suggesting genocide. So we're not going to go back to that article anymore. I think I've made my point clear about information and noticing that Ben Carson had got his information from the likes of this particular website that we were just reading about. In addition, scholars note that her views on abortion were far from those of an advocate. In her own words, although abortion may be resorted into in order to save the life of the mother, the practice of it merely for limitation of offspring is dangerous and vicious. While she strongly condemned the practice, Sanger felt that it was a woman's duty and right to have for herself the right to say when she shall and shall not have children. So, if we're looking at the lies told by Candaceowens, accompanied by Ben Carson, Owens claimed that 79% of Planned Parenthood clinics are in minority neighborhoods. This is not by accident. That is by its founder, Margaret Sanger's eugenics design. Data on this matter is disputed, with advocates on each side of the abortion debate arriving at separate conclusions based on different methodology. Sanger has been criticized for supporting eugenics, but scholars say her allegiance to the movement concerned public health, not race, as you read for yourselves. And again, When the movement began, she was at the very beginning of it before it was bastardized by racism and the Nazi Party. So no, she was not about sterilizing other races. She was not about controlling Black population. As you saw here regarding the Negro Project, she had the support of Blacks to ensure that healthy preventative care and contraceptive care were provided to the Black community, namely Black women. She also was largely opposed to abortion, and none of her clinics performed the procedure until after her death. This statement contains an element of truth, but ignores critical facts that would give a different impression. We rate it mostly false. And the reason why I said it was mostly false is because there was still a bit of truth or an element of truth to be written about this. But as you saw, there's a difference between what was read here versus what was read off the other page. So no, Margaret Sanger was not a part of the Nazi Party. She was not trying to control the birth of the Black population. And no, 79% of clinics, Planned Parenthood clinics, are not in Black and Hispanic neighborhoods. So let's just get that mess out of here. Done with you. And of course, here's this old lion page. And we've just covered a lot of information on our NPR page that we really don't have to go through in here. This is more or less just reciting the information. But even though it is not a fact-checking site, this site is actually more in line with the truth. I will say that much. I'll just read this one little part and we'll get on with it, because we spend a lot of time on Planned Parenthood and controlling the Black population, as well as the information about the founder, which is Margaret Sanger. So this page was called the Sanger-Hitler Equation. Search for Margaret Sanger's name on the internet, and you will quickly be bombarded by claims that she supported Hitler and the Nazis' human elimination programs, or at the very least, inspired the Nazi architects of race improvement. Hitler and Sanger joined hands, blares one anti-Sanger diatribe. Margaret Sanger, Sterilization and the Swastika, is the title of another. Let us look forward to the day when Planned Parenthood clinics are made into Holocaust museums, concludes another attack on Sanger's writings. One website features photos of Sanger and Hitler united under a swastika. Another inserts the phrase concentration camps into a 1932 Sanger speech to demonstrate her real motives, a novel form of textual annotation that is then passed on like a virus to other sites who point to the phrase as documented evidence of Sanger's final solution. Though this disinformation, and it says so right here, though this disinformation campaign designed to arouse anger and anti-choice activism resides largely on the internet in colorful, sensationalized pages, even the more respectable print outlets have picked up many of the most extreme Nazi-related allegations about Sanger as voiced by anti-abortion activists at newsworthy events or on op-ed pages. All right, so there's really not much more that needs to be said about this as well, other than this is the yang to the yin of that lie that other article was putting out here, claiming that she was about eugenics, that she was about sterilizing Blacks, the entire lie. This is the opposite of that. This is actually providing information that is true. How do we know that? We just came from PolitiFact. And as Zyrex was making mention earlier, as I also stated, you have to watch where you get your information from. You have to be able to fact check, but in order to fact check, you have to know how. So what I may do in the coming weeks, I'm going to put together another show, or better yet, I may go ahead and re-release a previous video of how to fact check your information. But again, all that noise being talked about her was a lie, and I have demonstrated that. Feel free to roll this back and read through it if you don't believe me. I'm not a fan of Candace at all. I was there when she was liberal making fun of Trump. Then she did her 180 swap. Yeah, I do not know what makes people go from being all right, telling the truth about this man, to humping his leg like the majority of folks have done, especially when you look back at how Cruz had nothing but ill words to say about Trump in 2016, even after Donald talked about his wife. And then the next moment, he can't get himself enough of Donald Trump. Now, a lot of people have been talking about there must be something he being Trump on all these folks. Who knows? But the proof is in the output. All you need to know is that these folks had a reason to dislike this man before. Whatever reason they're supporting right now, you have to ask yourself, what is it that's being done in the background to generate that support? But different show, different topic. For right now, again, yes, Candace was liberal as anything, and then one day she's all on the Trump train. Who knows? So we can go ahead and get rid of this. All right, so we're going to be getting now, I don't want to reveal this too soon, into the next part of the show here. But before we do that, we had 3 questions Dwight and I went through. I know it got kind of long-winded, but I hope that a lot of the side streets we took gives you the amount of information and truth about topics that you are not getting fully briefed in on. All right. Again, Black conservatives are taking their cues from the white conservative as a whole. And I'm not talking about all whites. I'm talking about the folks who been to these ideologies of lies that we're talking about. And then in return, these same lies are perpetuated in the Black community by Black conservatives who will listen to it on one side of the street, walk over and repeat it. And then all you need is Hotep Jones on the corner with his bullhorn, him and Poo Poo Ellis, and it spreads throughout the Black community because he said it with his chest. All right, so the first 3 topics we covered. 79% of Planned Parenthood clinics are in Black and Hispanic neighborhoods. That was false. All right, and that was shown to be false. Planned Parenthood was a way of controlling the Black population. Again, that was false. The founder of Planned Parenthood supported the Nazi Party. What do you know? False again. And all that proven here from a fact-checking site that can be found in a level of research if you know what you're looking for. Again, I may need to go ahead and either do another show or, like I was saying before, re-release a video. We'll work that part out. But just understand that those 3 things that I just mentioned, you saw were demonstrably false. All right, number 4. Women get imprinted by the last man they have unprotected sex with. So if anyone is familiar with the red pill ideology, there's always the conversation about a woman being imprinted upon by her previous man. So the other day when I was on the panel with Fatty, Athena ripped off with something that was absolutely a goddamn lie that I knew when I heard it. But she stated something along these lines. Oh, well, I've read studies that show that a woman gets imprinted by a man. I think we're talking about sex relations. She talked about how a man's DNA is imprinted on a woman after sex. Like, oh, bull. I'll bust this myth in real time also, Cyrus, but no, it doesn't happen. Not in the slightest. But nonetheless, Athena said that with a level of confidence that I could not believe. But what got me more is that no one around on the panel challenged it. They sat there and accepted it. Either number one, I don't know if Athena has a channel now because I don't follow her, but I may make it one of my duties now to check in on her channel from time to time to make sure that she's not over here perpetuating these type of lies. If she is, again, this is the spot where you come to add clarity to the bullshit. But nonetheless, I asked Athena in the back check, hey, send me this research you're talking about. I dropped my email address and I have not heard anything from her yet. But not to dwell on that, let's just go ahead and do this. Oh, I damn sure hate a lie. All right, so here are the facts. Fact check. Study did not find women store DNA from intercourse with men. All right, so you can check this out. Reuters, also a part of the National Fact Checking Association, or NFC, National Fact Checkers. That was a goddamn lie that this woman told, but no one had anything to say about it, either because they didn't know any better, or if they didn't know, they didn't want to be the ones to question it. But you know me, I'm gonna say something, because I am not about to sit here and watch these type of lies further tear down the community. So going forward, now this lie has been out here in the red pill community for I don't know how long, but still, we just need to go ahead and put this thing to rest. This is an old study, by the way. A 2012 study, or excuse me, not an old study, an older article. It's only a year old, but as I said before, true information has no expiration date. A 2012 study did not find that women store men's DNA after sexual intercourse, as suggested by an old headline, which recently resurfaced online from a defunct website that repeatedly published misinformation. Both the 2012 study cited in the 2018 article and another study from 2005 by one of the same authors speculated about the possibility, yet to be explored, that male DNA found in a woman's bloodstream, a phenomenon known as microchimerism, could be partly due to intercourse, among other already known sources, according to two of the authors. Now, just in case you didn't know, folks, chimerism, or you have two different blood types in a single individual, it's something that you may see if you have someone who has had a bone marrow. What do they call that? A bone marrow transfusion. So what you will see is an individual who has had bone marrow transfusion in some rare instances, but it has happened. It is on the papers, who has the DNA of two people, the individual's own DNA or biological markers, and that of the individual that they got their bone marrow transplant from, or did I say transfusion? Excuse me, transplant. But nonetheless, that is one of the only times that I know of that chimerism has ever occurred. Just to put that out there in case you weren't aware of that particular word or what it was. Thus, it is erroneous and misleading to state that intercourse leads to microchimerism. William F.M. Chan, an author of the 2012 study, said in an email. A recent Facebook post shares an image with the headline, "Women store DNA from every man they've ever made love with, study finds," that dates from a May 20th, 2018 article by Neon Nettle, an online publication that no longer exists, but which previously published false reports. Going further, the Neon Nettle article cites a study led by Chan titled Male Microchimerism in the Human Female Brain, published in 2012. Microchimerism refers to the presence of cells in an individual that are from another individual. The authors note that the presence of male cells in women's bodies is already established as being linked to prior pregnancies with a male fetus or transfer from a male sibling in utero, for example. They describe male DNA found in the brains of women in their study as most likely from prior pregnancy with a male fetus, and do not conclude or mention that women store DNA from males acquired through intercourse. In our study, as well as others done prior, we merely speculate the establishment of microchimerism through intercourse, Chan told Reuters. That is, the possibility exists, but it has not been tested or proven, as the layperson may say. Oh, check this out, folks. And coming to the stage, we have Top Cat.
Oh my gosh, man! Sorry, I'm late. I had my son over here, and now my sister on it. I got to start radiation in next week. I have to go in for 5 or 6 radiation treatments. So I have my son here just laying out certain things. Nah, it's a process, you know.
What are we'll
It's,
go ahead. Let's pause the
it's
show here for a second. Is it remission still or what?
no, it's back in my right lung, so I have to get it removed. So I'm good. You know, I was on the phone pretty much all day, and then Mrs. OG, that's another issue. You know, so we got to kind of plan out because I have to have it every other day. So now she has to, adjust her work schedule, and I got to get my son to see if he can fill in. So they laid out what they're going to do, you know. So it is what it is. You know, I kind of knew it was coming to that, but it's just the amount of treatments I got to have. And then the side effects, you know, my ribs are gonna hurt. You know, they're just laying out everything. So my son just left a little while ago. I'm like, hey, you know, I'm good. I'll be all right, you know. So I don't know, to deal with it again, but this is different from before because now it's the right lung. So now you got another issue, but you know, they think they can get it all, take it all out, but it's what I have to deal with physically, you know. And nah, I'll be all right. It's just gonna take some time, I guess, you know. But we're good. Mrs. OG's good. And she didn't want to hear it, but there's nothing I can do, you know. I'm like, hey, this is what it is, you know. You know, I'm good
right,
though.
sir.
I'm good.
Okay.
You know, you gotta have a positive attitude, and you just gotta get through it. And that's the thing, you know, getting through it. I don't know. I
All
think
right.
what bothers me is every other day. You know, you have it one day, and then it lapse, and then another day, and it's every other day. I think that's what's gonna get to me the most because they might as well just let me stay there and not even stay home. It's why I'll be there and get it done, but that's not the way it is, I guess. So it is what it is. Oh well.
Well, let's try and take your mind off that for a little bit, sir, if we can. Hopefully, here.
Yeah, I'm good.
So what we're doing today, we're looking at lies Black conservatives tell the Blacks. And so we've already done a good coverage here, and we had a decent small little crowd here before. Zyrex is checking in and out for the most part, but Dwight was up here early. I don't know if you've been on the panel with Dwight before. I think you may have.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Dwight was here earlier, but he had to roll here. And so we got a little bit long-winded in some of the areas, but it was information that needs to be covered here. So basically, one of the things or three of the topics we've covered already is 79% of Planned Parenthood clinics are in Black and Hispanic neighborhoods. That was false. Planned Parenthood was controlling the Black population. That was false again. The founder of Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, support the Nazi Party. That was false. So those were easily to rip down and throw away. But Candaceowens and Ben Carson both took a part in having the Jackass of the Year award for stating those lies here. But that's what we've done thus far. And we're on to the fourth question. I had 7 here. So I'm kind of speeding things up a bit because I want to try and at least stay under 3 hours. But it looks like I'm going to end up having to do everything with a time slot here in the description so I can count out or pretty much add out where we start different topics. But we're on to the fourth one right now, which is women get imprinted by the last man they have unprotected sex with, which is no, that is a lie also. So I'm pretty much just coming through a portion of the interview, but the article explaining why it's a lie, to include also having individuals explain exactly what is going on. So remember, in a lot of the red pill topics, I'm sure that you've heard this, Top Cat, where you heard guys talk about, oh, women get imprinted on by the last man they were with. Now, you recall those conversations, right?
Right.
Yep. So this debunked and said, no, women are not imprinted on sexually by the last man they were with. But this article pretty much just went through that. And so the information gets to be repetitive, but let me just skip to the bottom part because we've already read the meat of it for the most part. Actually, let me step back up. The 2005 study by Nelson and colleagues that looked for male DNA in women's blood is also cited by the Neon Nettle article, but that study also only speculates about sex as a possible source of the DNA. The 2005 study lists the more likely sources, first including known pregnancies with the male fetus, unrecognized spontaneous abortion, a vanished male twin, or cells from an older brother in the woman's mother's bloodstream that were transferred to the daughter while she was in utero. Another possibility that has been investigated is whether male DNA can be detected in a woman's circulation from sexual intercourse without pregnancy, the study authors wrote. Chan said that even today, there is still no recent peer-reviewed study that directly addresses this possibility. In other words, the claim remains false. Verdict, false. A 2012 study did not find that women store male DNA from sexual intercourse. This article was produced by the Reuters fact-check team. Read more about our fact-checking work. And if you see there in the bottom corner, and there you go, it's highlighting Reuters.com/fact-check/about. So we're having a conversation about fact checking as well to ensure that any information that is provided from anyone, it needs to be information that has been verified. So Dwight and I talked about, we made this name up, Hotep Jones. And Hotep Jones, he is that guy who's got internet access, he's got a microphone, he's got a StreamYard account, and he's just out here talking. He's not verifying what he's saying, but he's just having that conversation because he can.
So let me ask you a question, though. Does that mean, is that saying that the semen that is in there, is that what they're saying, though, when they say the semen stays in the woman's body for, I forget how long? You remember somebody saying that? Remember that on one of them panels? They said it stays in there for how period of a long time or something?
I can't recall that particular conversation, but I'm familiar of the conversation. But in the article, they talk here about what possibilities could be. Nothing has been definitive. This is the last part that I was reading. Likely sources, first, including known pregnancies with male fetus, unrecognized spontaneous abortion, a vanished male twin or cells from an older brother in the woman's mother's bloodstreams that were transferred to the daughter while she was in utero. So they go back and list what possibilities where people would derive that from, but ultimately, in the end, it is false.
See? So much for people doing their homework, huh? They know so much, but they won't do their research. You see what I'm saying? Though? They spew out all this stuff, and here you come. Where are they at? Come get this information.
No one can be found, but as I told Fatty, we had a conversation today about why I'm not on more of the panels, and it wasn't anything negative per se. Said, hey man, we're trying to get our viewership up, and I let him know, hey man, my approach is more so about education than it is entertainment, and there's nothing wrong with that if you've established what your platform is for. Now, as you know, you and I, or whenever we can get Chicago Gorilla to get here, if he's not caught up in school or anything else, I think he's volunteering tonight. But even if Alicia is here, we all know that this is a fact-based platform. We're not here to make a show out of anyone. We're not inviting anybody over here who's been kicked off other platforms because of these type of claims with misinformation right here, because of providing information that is true, or excuse me, that is false, that is demonstrably false, but yet you have people who will take that information and run with it. That's not what's going to happen over here. So as a result, I don't have an entertainment value that would draw folks in. And again, Fatty and I have an understanding with each other, and there's no hard feelings. But as I told him, hey, I'm education first, so I'll just have to catch up. I'm going to draw my numbers here once I start reaching out to folks. But before I do, I need to have a body of work that can be referred back to. So that's what we're doing right now. As I said before, when you, myself, and Rilla had the first couple of shows together. We are developing a body of work on this platform that consists of accurate and true information that you can verify anywhere you go. And that's what I would do first and foremost before we look at entertainment. If anything, we need to be edutainment.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, as I said before, the verdict of this was a lie. So we can go ahead, boom, and get rid of that one. All right. So the next question here, or statement that we hear from Black Republicans or Black conservatives, is that the Republican and Democrat parties did not switch ideologies. So we're not going to spend too much time on that because you and I and Rilla, or by myself, we beat the shit out of that one. We beat that one into the ground. Yes, people, in the mid 1960s, the Republican and the Democratic Party switched ideologies because of the fact you had more Blacks that started leaving the Republican Party for the Democratic Party. Now, when we look at the way we're phrased or staged today, the Republican and Democratic Party are not the same parties they were 50 years ago, much less 150 years ago. The Republican Party, being the party of Lincoln, were on the side of freedom for the slaves. The Democratic Party was comprised of the slave owners who did not want the slaves to have rights, who did not want a Black man in the line at the local store next to his white wife buying sugar or something like that. They did not want to see that. However, as I had mentioned, in 1927, you had what was known as the Great Flood of Mississippi. Right. Herbert Hoover, who was the Secretary of State at the time under President Calvin Coolidge, was responsible for the response, even though that was not his job. But because of the fact that Hoover had been known to be a humanitarian, he was asked to help assist with the situation. So long story short, you had 23,000 acres of farmland that was destroyed in this flood. It was historic, a flood that was one for the generations. So you had all the whites and Blacks from the town in one camp. However, while in that camp, whites were getting paid for their losses, but Blacks were not. And we're talking about the Black farmers and white farmers. And this carried on to an extent that you had the white farmers who were even drawing the money that was supposed to be going to the Black farmers to themselves. Mm-hmm. Now, let's move further where the white farmers and their families were allowed to leave the camps, but the Black families were not. And again, look up the 1927 Great Flood of Mississippi. So again, what ended up happening is that the Blacks were left in the camp because they were forced to try and repair the levees. They were not engineers, but because of the fact that they were still there, they were Black and sometimes forced at gunpoint. Blacks were forced to work on the levees. Even if I recall, properly, forgive me, I properly recall there was a man who was shot and killed in the camp during the course of this time. Now, while this is going on, you've got the NAACP, who is aware of the mistreatment of Blacks, and they are ready to go to the news media about this at the time. So being that Booker T. Washington was unable to come out and speak on behalf of the NAACP because he had taken duties as the president of Tuskegee, you had another brother who came out in his stead who had the conversation with Hoover. Now, Hoover is looking to be the president in the next upcoming election in, I want to say 28. And he has said that, okay, wait, don't go to the public about this. I tell you what, keep this under wraps. And if I become president, I will do everything I can to advance anything and everything for Black people. I will get behind the NAACP and support them to my utmost. So the NAACP suppresses the story. They say absolutely nothing. Hoover becomes president, and guess what?
Didn't say shit.
Nope, didn't say anything, didn't do anything. And that moment right there is what started the exodus of Blacks from the Republican Party because of the maltreatment, the mistreatment, and the lies given to the NAACP about supporting Blacks. about what was going on was not expressed, they said, okay, we're done. We're moving on. So by the time you get to Franklin Delano Roosevelt becoming president, because Hoover was a one-term president, Roosevelt is now talking about reform programs where he wants to look at welfare and taking care of his fellow human being. We're going to see that in a second when we get to one of the other topics, when we talk about the federal government and supposedly breaking up Black families. But we'll get to that in a moment. But be that as it may, that's where the Exodus took place. Now, before that, if I go back, in 1915, during the resurgence of the Ku Klux Klan, the Ku Klux Klan, I believe in Chicago, had a parade where they were celebrating for the most part. And in the celebration, there was the resurgence of the Klan, so to speak. This is the Klan coming back. There was instances where there was a local Black paper that was responsible for making sure that the word was getting out about how the Klan was in its resurgence, but also there was an issue pertaining to how Blacks were being treated at the time. Now, I'm going to have to do more research on that because that is where, if you are to follow Michael Imhotep on the African American News Network, he says that was the turning point where Blacks were leaving the Republican Party. But I will say that is a factor, but that was not the de facto moment in time. But I'll just break that off right there. But again, understand here that moving back into the 1960s, the parties switched sides, or the ideology switched. So the party of Lincoln today would be more aligned with the Democratic Party, because you don't see the Democrats trying to stop people from voting, trying to run people out of the country, deporting people, claiming that Black history is racist, divisive, revisionist, striking down anything that has to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. You don't see that happening from the Democratic Party. We see all that happening with the Republican Party. Therefore, the slave-owning mentality, or the party of the Democrats that was made up of those folks, jumped over to the Republican Party, as you and I know, Top Cat. So there's no need really to go into that. Just understand, folks, that if you have any questions about that, either myself or Top Cat or Chicago Rilla, we can give you the proof. So again, that is another lie that Black conservatives tell. So I'm going to say that is false. All right, the next lie that you get here, the Southern strategy did not exist. Top Cat, you familiar with the Southern strategy was, or do we need to recoup that for a second?
No, go ahead and recoup it, bro.
All right, so the Southern strategy, that was an ideology where it was claimed, or I'm not going to say it was claimed, it was proven that to gain the support of white Southerners, it was required to focus on their prejudicial beliefs in order to get their support. Now, this has been documented, but if you have that conversation with someone such as a Candaceowens, oh no, that's a lie. So let's go ahead and bring my girl Candace back in here. She just can't stay out of trouble. The Southern strategy is a myth that never happened. It's always her, TC. It is always her out in the lead with these lies. During a congressional hearing on hate crimes, conservative African-American commentator Candaceowens said that the Republican Party never had a strategy of capitalizing on racism to lure voters. So I'm going to bust that myth here in a minute, because I went out and I found the Lee Atwater interview where he gives a breakdown of the Southern strategy. So it was already a lie when she told it, but let's go ahead and we'll entertain it. Owens said that Black conservatives face criticism from the left because they have the audacity to think for ourselves and become educated about our history and the myth of things, like the Southern switch, which we just talked about, and the Southern strategy, which never happened. Again, black people. No, let me put this straight. Black conservatives telling lies to other blacks, and other blacks who do not take the time to research take it as fact. All right, so the Southern strategy refers to efforts by the Republican Party to appeal to Southern white voters who were turned off by the Democratic Party advocating for civil rights. Now, that was the big thing that in 1948, where you had Strom Thurmond, who was part of the Dixie Democrats. Strom Thurmond said, okay, we're doing too much here. We're trying to give the Negro the same type of rights that we have. Absolutely not. He tried to become the party favorite to be selected to run for election, but Truman won. And of course, you know, Truman became president, and the rest is history. It's all written in fact here. So check this out. Historians disputed her statement, including Cornell professor Lawrence Glickman and University of Arkansas professor Angie Maxwell. Princeton historian Kevin Cruz called Owens' statements utter nonsense. Owens is a spokesperson for the conservative nonprofit Turning Point USA and encourages Black people to leave the Democratic Party. Remember back in 2017, 2018, she called it Blexit.
Yeah.
All right, so we already know that it's a lie. So there's no need for really to go through this. It's a lie. It's already been proven a lie. But let me show you what we have in Encyclopedia Britannica for the Southern Strategy. Can you still see this subtext?
Yeah, I can see it. Mm-hmm.
All right. So this is from Britannica. Again, there's going to be nothing but the facts presented on this platform, people. I need you to understand that. I will not tell you anything that I cannot fully substantiate. And if I feel that I'm wrong, I will make sure I get clarity. But right now, this is a slam dunk, no brainer. We already know it was a lie when it came out of her mouth. But again, Black conservatives will tell this lie. And you will find folks who do not do their research, other Blacks will accept it because she puts a sentence together well. She talks great for a Black person. Oh, listen to the authoritative way that she speaks. She must be knowledgeable about what she is discussing. When people hear Candace speak in such a manner, oh, cuz she got to be good. She knows what she's talking about, yo. You know what I'm saying, man? Yeah, she was spitting facts. Ooh. Yeah, Ty. I can't stand that. Anyway, Southern strategy in the political history of the United States, a campaign strategy the Republican Party actively pursued for the 1960s that initially sought to increase and preserve support from white voters in the South by subtly endorsing racial segregation, racial discrimination, and the disenfranchisement of Black voters. The strategy has also involved directly promoting conservative views on immigration, taxes, social welfare, programs, law enforcement, and states' rights. Now, when Candace was speaking of history, she is talking about Confederate history, aka, I said so much now I'm drawing a blank, the lost cause of the Confederacy. And the lost cause, again, was implemented and put in place by the Daughters of Confederacy. These were Southern women who were the daughters of Confederate generals or Confederate soldiers, anyone who served in the Confederacy. And they took it upon themselves to make sure that the loss that was endured is not seen as a loss. Now, do I sound crazy, Top Cat, if I say, you know what? Zyrax thinks she's tough, but I beat the hell out of her knee with my nose. All right. Yeah. Zyrax thinks she's bad, but she's a total sissy. I worked the hell out of her elbow with the back of my head. Now, how stupid does that sound? That is what you get when you hear people talk about, oh, well, yeah, the South, we were victimized, but you know what? We still preserved our heritage. It wasn't about slavery. No, it was all fault. The Civil War, it was about states' rights. No, it was not. But you have enough people who will sidestep the truth and will actually tell this lie in public because there are enough people to believe it. As I said earlier about the shirt that I have on here, you've seen it before with Booker T. Washington. A lie does not become the truth. Evil does not become good. Wrong does not become right. just because the majority accept it.
Right.
And that is what Candace is shooting for all the time when she gets up here and rolls through these lies. So let me pause it here for a couple of seconds. So Tomcat, give me about a minute and 30 seconds or 90 seconds. What's your thought process of what we're discussing here before we move on?
Yeah, but she's trying to get these people she's trying to get into these people's heads and spewing all that BS and not doing their homework. You know, people get to believe in that. We're in a society now where you got all this time in the world to check the fact checker and see what really is the truth. And a lot of these people is just like you said before. They'll get what they want. They'll promise you something, and you'll jump on that bandwagon only to find out later on that they ain't coming forth with their promises. This is the same thing she's trying to put out there. She's thinking that people are dumb, but you got to understand we're in the modern technology now where people can take the time to do that research. And I don't think a lot of that stuff is being done. But there are others that there are other people that fact checked her and put out there that she's telling a lie. That's not true. That's just something. And if people are going to keep believing that, we're in the world of we're in the world of trouble. But that's one thing I know about you, though. You do that homework, so you do that research, and that's the thing. You know, to shoot this stuff down, it's just crazy. It is.
Exactly. You've got to go out and find it. But the thing is, once you find it, does anyone want to believe it? No, not often you're going to find that. But still, as I said before, we're going to build a community and a platform where we have a body of work that if you don't believe what I'm saying, you can go check for yourself. But I'm also going to show you where you can find that said information. Right. So the last thing here says the Southern strategy proved successful. By the late 1970s, the regular political leadership of most Southern states had switched from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party. Excuse me, the Republican Party. As I said before, anyone who still did not believe that civil rights was something that they wanted blacks or Spanish or anyone else to have, they went to the Republican Party. Anyone in the Republican Party who still had the same feeling and belief of what Lincoln intended went to the Democratic Party. So it was a lie on both sides here. She was lying about the switch not taking place, and she was lying about Southern strategy.
That's crazy.
So here's a little bit more information that goes into information in the background behind Southern strategy. But there's no need to go any further into this because, like I said, we've just run over on time, but we got enough time to go ahead and clear everything else out. But anyone needing to know, here it is in Britannica. Just simply type Southern strategy, and it will take you here. All right, so we can say the Republican and Democratic parties did not switch ideologies. That's a lie. Now, that's already been proven before. I didn't bring it up to save some time. But again, we beat that horse to death. The Southern strategy did not exist. We've proven that right here. That was a lie from Candaceowens as well. Lord. Well, here's some other lies here that came up here. This was Ben's lie about Planned Parenthood targets black neighborhoods to control populations. So we had that conversation already. So you can see there are numerous lies here. And what I'm noticing is that the majority of lies that we keep seeing here being told, Candace seems to be the common denominator. Out of all these lies that have been told thus far, Candace owns over half of them told. But you cannot get black folks to stop listening to this trash coming out of her mouth. Matter of fact, here we go. I'm gonna key this up. This is what I wanted right now. Now, this is Lee Atwater's interview in 1981, where he talks openly about the Southern strategy. Now, I want you to hear this. Now, this is, back this up. This is out of his mouth. Now, if you remember, Lee Atwater worked on the campaign that got Ronald Reagan elected president. Now, listen to this, Top Cat. Let me know if you can hear this.
Here's how I would approach that issue.
Yeah, I can hear.
All right, maybe I need to put CC on. I don't know if that's.
As a statistician or a political scientist, or no, as a psychologist, which I'm not.
Can you hear enough of what he's saying, or does it help having the closed caption? Okay,
Yeah.
good. So fair use, fair use.
Is how abstract you handle the race thing. In other words, you start out, and now y'all aren't quoting me on this. You start out in 1954 by saying nigger, nigger, nigger. By 1968, you can't.
Did you hear that?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he says that you start out, and again, forgive my language, folks, but you start out saying nigger, nigger, nigger. That's what he said. This man right here, Lee Atwater, he's talking about the Southern strategy and how you go about coding your words so you don't say nigger, nigger, nigger anymore.
Right.
Keep listening.
Say nigger, that hurts your backfire. So you say stuff like force busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract now. You're talking about cutting taxes, and all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things. And the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. And subconsciously, maybe that is part of it. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if it is getting that abstract and that coded, that we're doing away with the racial problem one way or the other. You follow me? Because obviously sitting around saying we want to cut taxes, we want to cut this, and we want is much more abstract than even the busing thing, and a hell of a lot more abstract than nigger, nigger. You know. So any way you look at it, race is coming on the back burner.
Damn.
Republican Senator Tom Tillis has a.
All right, so you heard that he freely said nigger, nigger. He even said it right there. He put it out in front of everybody to be said here. So again, I'm just going to put this back. So if anyone wants to look for this on YouTube, here it is. All you have to do is just type in exclusively Atwater's infamous 1981 interview on Southern strategy and see it for yourself. No lies told here. Let me know if I'm wrong, TC.
No, you're right. Isn't that crazy? They started saying that stuff back then.
And then Candaceowens had the nerve to say, oh, it didn't happen. This never existed.
That's crazy.
So, topic number 6. I know you can't see that, but this is just for dramatic effect. The Southern strategy did not exist. That was a damn lie.
I wonder why nobody ain't calling her out on it, John. That's just crazy. That's crazy.
I will sit up here. I remember I got into it probably with Angry Man over this once, brief and a few other things. I don't think Fantastic and I have bumped heads on this too much. Beans and I haven't really been on the panel where we've discussed that, but Beans is, a libby lib like myself, but he and I still have our disagreements about how certain things go through. But in the end, we're all good at that. Kelly, what's her name? Kelly Corinne, who's been popping up. Kelly infuriates me with that nonsense from her. But again, I don't draw a large enough audience, so I normally don't get the initial invite. But when Fatty drops the link, and if I'm available, I'll take the link and come up there, and I'll cut up if possible. But she normally gets gone half the time I get there because she's always and it's because she's there at the start of the show. So that's how she and I end up. So I don't think there's ever going to be an opportunity to whereas I'm going to start out on any of these panels where I'm up here with these conservative lying asses.
They know what's going to happen when you start. They know exactly what's going to happen.
Oh, now
then they got to be forced to fact check because that's what they're going to do. Well, how do you know that? Well, I'm telling you where to go. Look for yourself.
The one time that I was up there with Kelly is when she told this lie that Donald Trump saved HBCUs and that Donald Trump had done everything he could in his power to support and save them. And I said, you a damn lie. And then I went out and got the information showing that Donald Trump had actually been trying to defund HBCU. I even brought up the document that showed the amount of money that he was siphoning and trying to take away or was taken away from HBCUs. And Kelly sat her and did this. That's not true. That's not true.
Well, here it is.
Information directly from the United Negro College Fund, who was keeping tabs of what was going on, had the audacity to tell me that I was lying.
That's
Yeah, so her not being in the same space as me is probably good because again, I don't want to take away from the show itself.
Right.
Because you start having that back and forth, that's the stuff people are looking for the clips. I'm trying to do that for everybody to have my face associated with that nonsense. But again, understand that we get truth done over here, as you know. All right, so check it out. Here's the last one. The federal government kicked black men out of the home to separate black families. All right, so true or false, Top Cat? How do you take that one?
That's the truth. Absolutely.
Or is it?
Well, so, you know, when they start talking about, and I guess when I heard that, if you know how they made the rule about if you're on Section 8 of welfare, a man can't be in the house, and they made that as an excuse of separating the man from the home. And I started thinking about that, and I'm thinking,
you're going down the right path. So I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. The federal government kicked black men out of the home to separate families. That is false. It has always been a lie. But again, because of the fact that the truth has never been put out there and prevalent for people to find, whatever is said the loudest and the longest becomes the truth. So before I drop the whole brick here, let me just go ahead and say it again. It is a lie, black people, that the federal government was kicking black men out of the home to break up black families intentionally. That is a bald-faced goddamn lie. Let me walk you through it. So the man in the house rule, TC, is what you were talking about.
Right.
So let me just go ahead, instead of me going ahead and saying, we'll just put it out here in print what it is. The term man in the house rule refers to a discriminatory welfare policy primarily associated with the aid to families with dependent children, or AFDC. It was called a different thing in the beginning here, but we'll go back to that in a moment, because this actually came to be from what was known as the Social Security Act of 1935. We'll take a look at that in a moment, but since we're already talking about this, we here at the moment, let me just go ahead and set it up, and then we'll jump back to see where this came from. Discriminatory welfare policy primarily associated with the aid to families, the AFDC program, that denied benefits to families if an able-bodied man was living in the household, regardless of whether he was contributing to the family support or legally obligated to do so. This rule was, now here's where people get confused and they get it wrong about, oh, this is a rule that was put together by the federal government. The actual man in the house rule that was out there, or this bit of, we'll call it doctrine is not the word I want to use. We'll say doctrine right now. This was shot down in 1968. It was abolished by the by the Supreme Court. They abolished this rule in 1968. It didn't even make it out of the 60s. It has started back in the 30s, but we'll show that momentarily. This rule was often applied to single mothers and their children, effectively forcing them to choose between having a male presence in the home and receiving crucial financial assistance. While the man in the house rule was struck down by the Supreme Court in 1968, similar punitive regulations and practices continue to impact low-income families and housing assistance programs. Now, what people do not realize is that the whole welfare program in the beginning, it was not meant for black people. It was for older white Americans who are getting up in their years, and for also poor families, primarily white families. But we'll read that in a moment here. on the other page I've got for the Social Security Act of 1935. So there's numerous documents that will correlate this. But again, if you don't know about how to properly look for it or know about it at all, you will think that, oh, the federal government was doing such and such. No, the federal government had nothing to do with this. This was something that was taken on by, let's say, if you lived in the South, if you lived in Alabama, and if you lived in Louisiana, you've got poor whites, you've got poor blacks. Who do you think is going to receive better treatment under the program?
The whites are going to receive better treatment.
There you go. So you remember that? I know you do. Do you remember that 1974 movie called Claudine? That Diane Gerald Jones.
Yes.
Do you remember that scene where James Earl Jones was visiting, and then one of the kids came in, Mama, it's the social worker. And they started running around the apartment. There was a teapot he bought her, a TV set, a whole bunch of things that he bought her that she was not supposed to have because of being low income and would not have the ability to afford, supposedly. And if anything that were found in the apartment, that means that you must be cohabitating with a man. And if that man is seen to be there, then it's going to be construed that if he is not the father and you've been having sex with him for an extended duration amount of time, then he must be contributing. They call that the substitute father rule. But he was construed to be a contributor. Therefore, she could lose her rights or her privileges to be on the program if a man was found in the house.
That's crazy, man.
But again, that was not the federal government. That was local agencies because the process was decentralized. So I'll go even further here. Look at this. Key aspects of the man in the house rule. The rule targeted families based on the presence of a man, regardless of his relationship to the children or his financial contributions. See, I just spoke of that. It resulted in the denial of AFDC benefits to families who would otherwise qualify, forcing them into poverty. Enforcement often involved intrusive investigations with welfare caseworkers scrutinizing households for evidence of a male presence. The rule placed a burden on single mothers. Notice it did not say black single mothers.
Right.
It said it forced it on single mothers, meaning, as I said, this was nothing that was geared towards black people by the government.
Right.
If it happened to target black people, it was because of being in areas where there was still excessive discrimination shown towards blacks. Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, the Carolinas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Louisiana, Texas. You were going to get more instances of black families being on welfare or being scrutinized by this rule because of the people running the program, not because the government had anything to do with it. Again, as I said before, it was struck down by the Supreme Court in 1968. And the name of that ruling that struck it down was called King versus Smith. So I'll make sure to apply that. But let me take a break here for this right now because I'm hogging up all the oxygen. So did you know this prior to me asking you what you thought of the federal government kicked black men out of the home to separate black families? True or false? You said true. But again, was this information I just made known to you known by you before?
No.
Or if not, it's the first time you're hearing this.
Yep, it's first time.
So what does that mean to you now that you've heard that this whole thing of the federal government is targeting black people, they're breaking up black families? What is your mentality now knowing this, Mr. C?
Boy, that takes away from everything that everybody's saying too, because that's what they're talking about. Even today, they're blaming the government for that. But they failed to go look and research it. They're spewing all this out here, blaming the government, and they're saying that to this day because you know what? before you even talked about it, I heard this. I don't know where somewhere else I heard of that, but I heard it. Well, the government's to blame for that. I'm thinking after listening, I'm thinking, I don't know. And I was kind of on the fence, and I'm like, but I didn't say, maybe you better do your homework and check it. Maybe you need to check what you're saying to be sure. Because you know how they get on these panels and talking that, they don't check that stuff. They don't check that. They're going by what they think they know, but then if you have somebody that did their homework come on there, that'd be a whole different story. That's the thing. They don't do that. That's what the problem is. They're spewing all this, but they ain't got nothing to back it up.
I go on Hamp's panel, and I am a liar. Oh, you lying. You know, Sean loves to try and get at me with that nonsense. Sean Brewster, loves John Henry always be lying.
All you got to do is look it up.
How am I lying? All right, I've got the proof right here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, everyone would say, oh, well, that's just a basic Google search. You can find that. Yes, I could find it over and over again. It's called correlational events, correlating things together. You don't just find it in one place. But as I said before, this all came from somewhere. It didn't just start in 1968. But again, before we move on, what's your final thought regarding this particular topic on this page here? Is it a surprise to you that what you've been told has been a lie, and this is going on for 30, 40 years?
Yes. This is something that people need to know now, especially on these panels. They need to stop all this, especially when they're talking about that Section 8 and welfare stuff. And that's what it leads right into this. As soon as they start talking about that, the next thing comes up. Oh, the government did that. The government didn't want no man in the house. But they don't research it. This is interesting though. This is something.
So where did it all begin? So I made sure that when I brought up the Social Security Act of 1935, I made sure to include child welfare plus white families, so people will see how it actually started out. Because again, with AI, you've got to be real specific on how you ask the question, because AI will give you two different answers to the same questions if you're not paying attention. That's one thing that I noticed that I don't think anyone's paying a lot of attention to. So AI is supposedly going to respond like a person does, which means depending upon what mood or what time you catch them, you may get a different answer to the same question. So when I do my searches, I make sure that I save whatever I do. And this is for anyone who's watching in replay or that one person out in the clouds right now. You want to hold down your control button on your keyboard and press S. And what that's going to do is allow you to save whatever it is on your screen. So it becomes a file. So if you were to save this particular page right now and save it to a folder, it's going to say .mhtml or something like that, markup HTML. But basically, it is allowing you to save the aspects of that web page. So the reason why I'm advocating people do that is because the Trump administration, I'm saying it, they are clearing out databases. You are not able to find information that was here about 2 or 3 years ago. You're not going to be able to find it if you search for it. Or they've updated the information to whereas you've got this revisionist nonsense that's in place of the original information that was there before. So I tell everyone, I'll tell you right now, if there's anything specific of information that you want to keep, that you want to be able to verify down the road, hold down the control button, press S, so you can save that information as it is. Otherwise, if you go looking for it later and it's it's a controversial topic, you're not going to be able to find it. All right. So there's another John Henry gem for you right there. So again, as I was saying, the Social Security Act of 1935 included provisions for child welfare, particularly aid to dependent children. Notice the ADC, but it's similar to what we're looking for or looking at when we talked about aid to families with dependent children. This one says aid to dependent children. So families is missing from that. So this was the precursor to AFDC. Just to make sure everyone understands this, which aimed to support poor mothers and their children. Notice it doesn't say anything about black people in here.
Right.
This program was originally intended for white families. However, the implementation of ADC, especially in the South, often resulted in racial discrimination, with white families disproportionately benefiting. This discrimination was partly due to the decentralized nature of ADC administration, which allowed states, notice, not the federal government that you keep hearing, oh, the federal government is breaking up the black family, they're kicking the black man out of the home. Bullshit.
Ain't that something?
Pardon my language, Aunt Barbara and Aunt Nora, if you're here, excuse me. My aunt ran through here earlier, so I need to make sure I wash myself sometimes. This discrimination was partly due to the decentralized nature of ADC administration, which allowed states to implement their own policies, and partly due to broader societal biases against African Americans. What you say about that, Top Cat? Am I lying? Am I telling lies to anyone right now?
Nope. Boy, this ought to be a good topic for somebody right there. Didn't know? Hey, who did the government remove the man from the home? Did the government have something to do with that? That would be a good one right there. Because you know exactly what they're going to say. Yeah, the government is going to do it. Wrong. What do you mean wrong? Yeah, you better look up that rule. And that'll shoot that down right now.
Well, being that you and I and two folks in the clouds right now, the only ones watching, plus hopefully this is on the replays of mine right now, you know that it is a damn lie.
Yep.
Hell, you, Top Cat, as of right now, you can go out and tell them, no, that's a damn lie. Now, of course, we know we'll get the, oh, you old nigga, what you talking about, man? Go take a nap. Everybody knows the government, but no, the government is not. But as you can see right here, you type what you see in that search engine, Social Security Act 1935, child welfare, plus white families, boom.
Yep.
Or send them to this particular string. No lies told here.
Nope.
Title 4 of the Social Security Act established ADC, providing federal funding to states to assist families with dependent children. This program was intended to enable widowed or abandoned mothers. Notice it does not say black mothers.
Right.
This program was intended to enable widowed or abandoned mothers to stay home and care for their children. Now, here's where we get the race part of it. While the initial language of the Social Security bill did not explicitly permit racial discrimination, the decentralized structure of ADC administration allowed states to implement policies that discriminated against African Americans. This included denying benefits based on suitable work requirements or employable mother rationales, standards that were often not applied to white mothers. The Social Security Act also excluded certain categories of workers, primarily agriculture and domestic workers, from its benefits. These exclusions disproportionately affected African Americans, as a large percentage of them worked in these sectors. So that's another aspect that I didn't have a chance to bring up here, but I'll probably do a short on that, or maybe a quick 10 or 15 minute video as a follow-up here. But people don't seem to realize that going from the 40s into the 50s, if we look at the first ages of technology really taking root, even back in the 40s and 50s, you had blacks who had manual labor skills, working outside, the roads, maybe farming or just manual labor. You had jobs that were going to automation that blacks were not skilled in at the time because, again, we were manual laborers, and we've been free labor for what, 250 years up to that point? We've been working for free. Something Michael Imhotep would say, hey, no, we've been doing all this work for free for 250 years. So all of a sudden you change those work requirements to whereas now you'd have to have some type of education formally to work in these plants where they're automating everything. What happened to the black men who didn't have those skills? They didn't have jobs. So that was another aspect. I think it's Michael or Albert Billingsley. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but fact check me if you want, folks. If you take a look, Billingsley he's a sociologist. You type in sociologist or Billingsley and The Root. I think this is an article that Dr. Billingsley did for The Root, stating that the falling apart of the Black family had nothing to do with welfare per se. The majority of that had everything to do with the technological advances that had come along, and Black men were not ready for that because they were not trained. As a result, these men were unable to earn money for the family that they needed to. So a lot had to migrate and go to different places to find work. And once you do that, what happens to keeping the family together?
Right.
You know, this guy, he's got to go look for work. So that is another lie that's told, or should I say that's an answer that is not included in here. But if you want to know what broke the Black family up, no, it was not welfare. It was not the government targeting Black families. As you can see right here, that was never the case.
Right.
But before I say too much more on what I'm talking about right now, again, technology and the advancement of technology, automation, that was a key factor in breaking up the Black family, because the Black man did not have the skill sets at the time to work inside of an automated industry. So we know it took time, another 10 years or 10 plus years or so, before you had Blacks who were able to work in those industries. But during that particular point in time, when it first occurred, yes, you had a lot of issues with men being able to support their families when the jobs they were accustomed to doing and were trained to do were no longer there. Impact on white families. Despite the discriminatory practices, ADC did provide some support to white families in need. However, the program's overall impact on white families was arguably more positive due to less stringent eligibility requirements and less overt discrimination. And of course, you know our friends, the Southern Democrats. Now, keep in mind, all of this was before 1965. So if you look at anything that played a part in shaping these rules, remember the Southern Democrats are the descendants of slave owners. And in today's Republican Party, when those Southern Democrats went to the Republican Party, what you have in the Republican Party are the descendants of slave owners. Why do you think the Republican Party's policies are always so just diabolical towards people of color? Nobody stops to look at the obvious in front of you. I say again, people, the proof is in the output.
Yep.
Southern Democrats played a significant role in shaping the Social Security Act, particularly in the areas of exclusions and administration. Their influence often resulted in policies that favored white families and perpetuated racial inequalities. So I'll drop the hammer right here and I'll say right now, you know how they talk about the housing situation for Blacks in the 60s. Here is why it was as dire and jacked as it was. If you need to ever know why there was always some type of discriminatory tactic executed against Blacks, Hispanics, whoever, during the course of the 60s or up into the mid 60s, when the ideologies changed, it was the Democratic Party at the time, the Southern Democrats, aka the Party of Slavery, that in 1964, when Barry Goldwater was announcing his candidacy and he was looking to run against civil rights, Martin Luther King said, okay, absolutely not, folks. You want to go ahead and vote for Johnson. That last push was Martin Luther King getting Blacks to further support the Democratic Party and leave the Republican Party, to which civil rights was now becoming the next talk. Remember, JFK was killed during the course of civil rights communications. And because of that, of the bond that was started by Martin Luther King, Baines was there for President Johnson, Lyndon B. Johnson, was there for that. He continued the work. Candaceowens was saying, oh, he had a gun to his head. There were riots and everything going. Okay, mischaracterize the situation, why don't you? But there was a statement where Johnson had stated after signing the Civil Rights Bill, one of his aides said, "Sir, what's wrong?" He said, "You know what? We could have possibly given the South to the Republican Party for all time to come," or something along those lines. But basically, he realized the effect of what he had done. But still, be that as it may, prior to 1965, any issues with housing, with care, with any type of programs where blacks want to be a part of, any restrictions, it was because of the pre-1965 Democratic Party.
That's something, huh?
So when anyone has a conversation about, oh man, look at what the Democrats are trying to do back in the 60s. I mean, they're like the Democrats of today. The Democratic Party hadn't changed. And that is just the voice of ignorance that you're hearing. If you hear a black person or even a white person, Hispanic person, if you hear anybody say, oh, the Democratic Party is the same party that was always hurting blacks back then, the same party that's doing it right now. Absolutely not. But I'll go ahead and let me drop it right there. Topcat, your thoughts on this particular subject here before we go through the list one more time. What's your last thought here regarding Social Security Act of 1935, looking at child welfare?
Man, this is a lot of information here. I have a screenshot just to make sure somebody called. I'm like, look, you got to look at this because y'all got this all wrong. Y'all need to be informed, but they don't do that. And that's the problem, John. They just go on all this talking stuff and listening, and they don't do no research. If they would do research for themselves, they could debunk all this BS. If they do their research, they could debunk all this stuff.
Or let's think about it. Maybe they don't want to because it now undermines your platform. So think about this. If you have built your entire platform on a lie, and now you have a certain level of truth that will destabilize that lie, what type of influence will you remain with once your lie has been toppled, that your foundation has been built to support the lies that are thrown on top? What are you left with?
Oh man, that would be something. All that BS you've been talking from the start, and then something like this comes out. Oh boy, that looking mighty bad. And then you've been feeding us all this, and then you come to find out it's something different. Why didn't you do your homework on this? That's just
Well,
that's crazy.
Here is the actual statute. If you want to look at it, King versus Smith. Alabama, which like all of the states participates in the AFDC program, in 1964 promulgated its substitute father regulation, under which AFDC payments are denied to the children of a mother who cohabits in or outside her home with an able-bodied man, a substitute father being considered a non-absent parent within the federal statute. The regulation applies regardless of whether the man is the children's father, is obliged to contribute to their support, or in fact does so. The AFDC aid, which appealee Miss Smith and her 4 children who reside in Alabama for several years had received, was terminated in October 1966 solely because of the substitute father regulation, on the ground that a Mr. Williams came to her home on weekends and had sexual relations with her. Mr. Williams is not the father of any of her children, is not obliged by state law to support them, and does not do so. Appealees thereupon brought this class action in the district court against appellants, officers, and members of the Alabama Board of Pensions and Security for declaratory and injunctive relief against the substitute father regulation. The state contended that the regulation simply defines who is a non-absent parent under the act is a legitimate way of allocating. But again, as I said, this was struck down in 1968 by the Supreme Court, stemming from a 1966 case which they don't let you in on. The woman, who was, again, a single mother of 4, was messing with a married man.
Lord have mercy.
Now, now that just makes the whole thing worse. See, a lot of that doesn't get out here, but
Right.
Mrs. Smith was messing with Mr. Williams, who was a married man. So remember how they talked about how they had these, they had the social workers come by, check the house, see if the man was there. What they also used to do was check and ask questions. How often was she having sex?
Wow.
It went that far. So if you were having sex at least once a month, something like that, okay, yeah, that qualifies. Boom, you're off. You're out of here. Or if you had sex, twice a week, once a month, whatever. That every agency had a different standard here. But again, what made this so tacky is, lady, you're trying to maintain what bit of benefits that you managed to get in this racist system.
Mm-hmm.
You know that they are trying to find a reason to boot you out. You're already on welfare, living inside of this system, and you're in here having sex with a married man. Now, you can only imagine if she came in with 2 children, now she's got 4. Obviously, she's having sex, which means that there's a man in the house, or she's seeing a man somewhere. And if that man were to be caught in the house, bam, hey, we're taking your benefits. You got to go, or whatever it was that they did. But if you have a woman who is there, she's got 2 kids, now she's got 3. Oh, yeah, she's having sex. But depending upon where you were, let's say if this was a woman who was in Connecticut, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just throwing a northern state here, or New York, something like that. This woman is having unprotected sex with a married man, all the while knowing that there's a rule that if you are caught with a man in here, if you're unmarried or you have kids that are not being supported, and a man is caught here, if that man is not made responsible for that and taking care of those kids, then hey, we got a problem here.
Right. That's crazy, man.
Yeah, so that is just a little bit. I'll just add extra to that Mrs. Smith was seeing a married man. And it's bad enough you're already on welfare with restrictions, but now you're messing with not just a man, but a married man. Come on now, woman.
I'm telling you.
Oof. So I will drop the rock hammer right there. Any last question on the topic here, TC?
Man, that's a lot to digest right there, man. That's something I never even knew nothing like that. Man, I got something now. I loaded in that chamber. I'm ready now. This is wow.
Oh,
nobody talks about nothing like this. This is wow.
Man, and just when I think I'm ready to get done, I'm sorry, TC. I'm not going to hold you up here too much longer, because I know there's plenty of things you could be doing with life right now. But let me give you one last spot. Man of the house. Plus, I want to say West plus encyclopedia. I think it's Pedia.com. Now, there was a site. I think I found it. Okay, here we go. So for anyone that's still left here, boom, go ahead and screenshot that, or at least, hell, you got the stream.
Mm-hmm.
You got the information. Let me take this down. We've already made sure we've covered this here. Now, this will go in and give you a full breakdown of the man in the house rule. Now, there's also another website here. I forget the name of the attorney. His last name is West. I'll see if I can find that, because I've got so much work I have to do now in some of the past shows where I have to now start linking some of this information in the description. Or option B, I can just do a timestamp. But I need to figure out how to do this, because I only expected this show to be an hour, but all the information, once you start cooking, it just starts coming out, as you know here.
Right.
But here we go. The man in the house rule at encyclopedia.com. And this is one of the better places that you can get information. Doesn't require you to have a membership. A regulation that was formally applied in certain jurisdictions that denied poor families welfare payments in the event that a man resided under the same roof with it. Now, notice it says nothing about the federal government, but I believe we've worked that out here. We know now that the federal government was not targeting Black families to break them up.
Right.
Federal government had nothing to do with it. What you had was racism based upon where you were in the U.S. and how that decentralized agency or that local agency decided to administer benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Under the man of the house rule, a child who otherwise qualified for welfare benefits was denied those benefits if the child's mother was living with or having relations with any single or married able-bodied male. The man was considered a substitute father, even if the man was not supporting the child. Before 1968, administrative agencies in many states created and enforced the man in the house rule. Notice, again, agencies in many states. It was not a federal government action.
Right.
In 1968, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the regulation as being contrary to the legislative goals of the Aid to Families of Dependent Children program. The AFDC program, established by the Social Security Act of 1935, which we saw, provides benefits to the children of impoverished parents. Now I'm done. TC, your thoughts?
Man, that's deep, man. This is good information, though. You know, and that's something that people should be talking about. They're putting it out there right now to debunk all this stuff. Because that's all I've been hearing. Government did this. It wasn't for the government. They had me believing that stuff until now. This is something, man. This is something. Mm-hmm. Council of G. That's right.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Old school gents with old school guidance. I'm not going to tell you something that I can't prove, folks. All I ask is that if you're here checking this out, and I'm talking to those 3 people who are peeping from the clouds right now, if you see this, whether you like it or not, again, facts do not choose sides. I have corroborated everything that I've brought up here. There's correlational information that can be found if you cross things together here.
Right.
All I ask, folks, is that you find somebody who knows somebody to tell somebody about what we're doing here. I don't do this for entertainment value, although learning the information that is correct, that is obstructed from us, you will get entertainment from that, knowing that there is a lie that someone is told, and there's a way that you combat that. To which I will say right now, I wanted to get a hat made, but I'm going to make some hats for everybody. So the new deal that I'm looking at right now here, I want folks to understand that at this point in time, we are now officially commandeering, at least on this platform of Value Conversation, I am commandeering woke. I'm taking it back. We have sat here and let folks who do not represent our culture, who do not look at our heritage as being worthy, who disparage, disenfranchise, and mischaracterize everything that we stand for. I'm not doing that anymore. At least I'm not going to be a part of it. So what I want people to understand is that woke is back.
Yes, sir.
Right. So I want to let you know how John Henry approaches woke. Because if we don't do this, we're never going to get this together here. So what does woke mean? You read it for yourselves.
All right, brother.
Is that not good?
Absolutely.
Just to make it known. Woke, where our knowledge expands.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to get back to. We need to start expanding our knowledge, going past the lies that people tell us or what have been told before. We are now in a mode in history where we need to start fighting back and making sure that we understand where we came from, something that has been denied to us for far too long. Did you know, Top Cat, that going back a minimum of 7,000 years, ancient Africans had already reached the apex of science?
Wow.
Did you know, going back 15,000 years, ancient Africa had reached the apex of medicine? Going back 35,000 years, did you know ancient Africans had mastered and were in the zenith of culinary, art, you name it, all these things that no one is knowledgeable about of Africa, because we had a presentation given to us from the European perspective. And it all goes back to religion. And that is one of the next things that I think I'm going to go ahead and start chopping down, because we have allowed a lot of achievements to be missed by us by deception. So
yes, sir.
Let me give this to you here. You know what? Fuck it. I'm going to do it anyway. All right. So the earth, supposedly, if you listen to a clergyman by the name of James Usher, he said that the earth was created on the particular date. The year was 4004 BC. I want to say James Usher lived in the late 15 or 1600s. Again, he was part of clergy. He said that the world was created in the year 4004, not 4003, not 4005, 4004. Now, based on what I've told you of what, now again, I've said this, but you can go and look for yourselves. Based on what I've told you, and hearing that statement, do you think Adam was really the first man? If we had societies that had mastered science, art, medicine, and culinary 7,000 years or even before, but the earth was supposedly made or created in 4004, do you really think Adam was the first man?
No. That's wild.
There's going to be problems from this little bit right here. But you know what? I'm not worried about it. Number one, I can prove it. Number two, nobody really watches a lot of these episodes to the end at times, except maybe the three people peeping from the crowd right now. So for you three folks in there peeping, take this back to whoever you know who's really stuck on the Bible and make the same statement. Ask them, if the earth was supposedly created in 4004, as stated by James Usher, how is it possible for Adam to be the first man when they have African societies dating back to 7,000, 10,000, 15,000 BC that have already mastered certain aspects of science, art, medicine, and culinary? How was Adam the first man?
Yeah, that makes you think now. That's wild.
All right, so I'll leave it there. So getting back to wrap it up with the topics, I've dropped my bomb. All right, so anybody wanting to pull the pin and go rounds with me, hey, let me know. The topics for the evening. Number one, 79% of Planned Parenthood clinics are in Black and Hispanic neighborhoods. We've shown that is false. Planned Parenthood was a way of controlling the Black population. False. The founder of Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, supported the Nazi Party. False. Women get imprinted by the last man they have unprotected sex with. God damn it, false. The Republican and Democrat parties did not switch ideologies. Of course, that is false. We've gone through this numerous times. The Southern strategy did not exist. False. How do we know this? Lee Atwater was telling us that, hey, we can't say nigga, nigga, nigga anymore. We got to say busing. We got to say states' rights. Not to mention, you know what? I showed that here. I proved it. And last but not least, The federal government kicked black men out of the home to separate black families.
Folks.
We know that was false.
Yeah.
TC, any last words from you?
Man, I appreciate this. I've been well educated tonight. Yeah, boy. This information really gonna shake it up. Man, the house rule. Better research. Better do it. It takes the government out of that.
Man in the house rule.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who's out there, go look it up.
Yeah.
You saw it here. Hey, no lies told, nothing but the truth I can offer.
Mm-hmm.
So as always, Top Cat, I appreciate you for stepping in when you can. I'm glad that you showed up to the circumstances. Does anybody else know, or am I the first to hear?
No, you're the first one. Nobody else knew.
All right. Is it best for me to leave it between us, whoever watched the stream, or will you do it?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I'll leave between us. I mean, you know, I'm not. I mean, just in case, you know what's going on, So and if anybody wants to know, all they can do is ask, But no,
don't you three people watch from the clouds go telling either. You heard Top Cat say between us. So whoever that is up here in the clouds watching, don't go running around and telling everybody that what's going on with TC right now. You keep that to yourself.
I'll get with Fatty on the back end and let him know, and then just go from there, But yeah, I'll be in touch, I'll keep in touch and let you know what's going on.
Do you want me to at least let Alicia and Chicago know, or just leave it here? Okay, I'll let them know.
Yeah, that's cool. But yeah, I'll like I said, I'll keep you up to date on what's going on. Absolutely. I'll be good. I'll be all right.
Just let me know what I can do, man.
Yeah, I'll let you know. Mm-hmm. But I appreciate it, brother.
All right, folks. So my last word is the same thing as always. Educate yourself. Facts do not choose sides. Information is right there. And we are in a situation where information is under siege, not just the Black community, but all communities. But however, tonight's show, lies Black conservatives tell other Blacks, we have got to ensure that we are talking back to these folks as soon as we hear it. So the last thing I meant to mention, which I'll go ahead and do it right now, what does all 7 of those topics have in common? Well, actually 6 out of 7. What do 6 of the 7 topics have in common?
All of them were lies.
All of them was a lie, but all of them were lies told by Candaceowens.
Just so.
Candaceowens told over 95% of the lies that we covered tonight. That's why I put her name up here. I forgot to put Tim Scott there, but I'll leave Tim Scott for another time. But right now, Candaceowens is the supporter of the show of misinformation.
All right.
So the next time anybody hears Candaceowens as being, oh, she's the truth teller. Oh, she done brought the news. No, she is the major source of misinformation in Black communities. She is a Black Trojan horse. And that's probably one of the other shows I'm looking at doing here in the weeks to come. Black Trojan horses. Those folks who come into the Black community with misinformation and spread it loose. All right, folks. So find somebody who knows somebody, tell somebody about what we've got going on over here. If you like it, let us know. Share it if you do. And subscribe. This is what you're looking for. Top Cat, again, man, thank you for showing through.
All right,
I appreciate it. Everybody else, always check us out if you can. We'll see you next time. And we out.
Yeah.